All right, good morning, everyone. We are here on the record in the case of Cayla Griffin, plaintiff, versus Albanese Enterprise, Inc., doing business as Paradise. The case number is 2019 CA 1555. And let the record reflect that the court reporter is present but not on the screen. She's appearing remotely and recording these proceedings. We also have Mr. Kachurgis, the plaintiff's attorney, present. We have the special magistrate, Ms. Hodak, present. One of our remote bailiffs, Mr. Smith, is also present. And I believe the plaintiff is also present. Is that correct, Mr. Kachurgis?
It is, and she's just taken or patched in with the video link.
All right, very good then. Good morning, Ms. Griffin.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. And also the record shall reflect that the defendant, Albanese Enterprise, Inc., is not present. Previously, a default was entered against Albanese Enterprise, Inc. They have elected not to retain counsel, and as a corporate entity without counsel, they cannot participate in these proceedings, and they've elected not to do so after being given proper notice of all of these proceedings are taking place today. We are conducting these proceedings remotely using the Zoom platform, and that's pursuant to the pilot program that this circuit was awarded by the Florida Supreme Court. And also this is pursuant to plaintiff's counsel and the plaintiff's written consent to participate in this remote jury trial. By that written consent, plaintiff's counsel and the plaintiff have waived any objections they may have to these remote proceedings as far as the method of conducting these proceedings. The plaintiff's counsel and plaintiff have also agreed in writing to the recording of these proceedings for study later by the Florida Supreme Court. With that being said, for the record, all of our jurors are also appearing remotely. All of them are appearing from their home or their office or some other location. I am the only person in this courtroom, 601, with the exception of one IT bailiff, Mr. Ashley, who is here to help out with any technical glitches here in the courtroom. But I am the only court personnel member other than Mr. Ashley in this remote courtroom in 601 at the Duval County Courthouse. Everyone else is appearing from some other location, either another location in this Duval County Courthouse, a different office, or they're appearing from their home or their office. So with that being said, there are some housekeeping matters I need to address while those jurors are in the remote jury assembly room. So for the record, all of our jurors in this first jury panel have appeared, and they are in the remote jury assembly room where they have had their identification confirmed by our remote deputy clerk, Mr. Corrigan. And also they are now presently watching a PowerPoint presentation I'm calling PowerPoint Presentation Part 1 for Zoom skills they will need for jury selection. So that's all going on as I speak at the present time. And so I do have some preliminary matters I need to address with counsel and with some of our court personnel before we bring the jury into the remote courtroom. And with that, I want to first confirm with our remote bailiff, Mr. Smith, and with our CVM production manager that the remote courtroom is unlocked and the public has been provided free access to view the remote civil jury trial via the link provided by CVN. Mr. Smith, are you able to confirm that?
Yes, sir.
All right, then also all the jurors have arrived and they are in the remote jury assembly room. Is that correct, Mr. Smith?
Yes, Your Honor. We are missing one juror that was excused.
All right, and that was a juror that was excused for hardship, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that would have been what would have been numbered juror number 3, Cayla Hedgick, and the court has excused Ms. Hedgick for hardship due to the fact that she resides in Tallahassee and is a student at FSU. We have excused her for hardship, so she will not be appearing with us this morning. There are some instructions I need to give to the bailiffs, our remote bailiffs, and to our special magistrate, Ms. Hodak. And so I need everyone to listen very closely. The public and the media are permitted to be present in the remote courtroom via the CVN broadcast to observe the remote trial proceedings, even when the remote jury is outside the remote courtroom. Anytime that we are on the record, even with the remote jury outside the remote courtroom, the public and the media are permitted to observe these remote trial proceedings with the exception of an in-camera inquiry involving only a party and his and her attorney or a remote sidebar conference. Obviously, the public and the media will not be able to observe any in-camera proceedings or any sidebar conferences between the court and counsel and potentially a juror in this case. In addition, there will be no CVN broadcast or any other access given to the public or the media to the remote jury room, even during recesses. Just like during an in-person jury trial, those rules remain in effect. Do all the remote courtroom personnel understand these instructions? I need an audible response.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, then also earlier this week, I distributed or prepared an order setting forth the scope of routine ex parte communications with remote jurors. It was an email to counsel and to Ms. Hodak and to Mr. Smith for distribution to the other remote bailiffs, and I'll go over those instructions briefly on the record verbally. Pursuant to Rule 1.431I of the Florida Rules of Civil Procedure, the court is required to set forth the scope of routine ex parte communications with jurors to be permitted and the limits imposed by the court with regard to such communication. This is a special proceeding. This is a remote proceeding, so the court has taken some liberty to modify those instructions to be suitable for a remote jury trial. And so please listen very closely. Routine ex parte communication between the special magistrate, our remote bailiffs, or other courtroom personnel and the jurors are limited to juror comfort, technology issues, and safety, and those may occur off the record. Examples of such permissible ex parte communication include discussion of routine matters such as recess and break schedules, technology issues, instructions on how to use the Zoom platform, how and when to assemble for remote jury duty, proper attire, and which items of jurors' personal property may be brought into the remote courtroom or remote jury room. Except for those types of permissible ex parte communications regarding juror comfort, technology issues, and safety, any other communication between the special magistrate and our remote bailiffs or other courtroom personnel and the jurors will be promptly reported to the court, and the court will notify the plaintiff and plaintiff's counsel of any matter that may be of interest to the party. In no event shall ex parte communication between courtroom personnel, the special magistrate, and the jurors extend to any matters that may affect the outcome of the trial. That would include statements containing any fact or opinion concerning a party, an attorney, or a procedural matter or relating to any legal issue or lawsuit. Courtroom personnel shall immediately report to the court and notify the court of any communications to or from a juror or among the jurors in contravention of this order or these instructions, including all communications that are contrary to Rule 1.431I, the Florida Rules of Civil Procedure. I need to get an audible response from the courtroom personnel. Mr. Smith and Ms. Hodak, you all understand those instructions?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. I've also, Mr. Kaczurgis, I have also entered an order regarding closing arguments that was distributed to you, and I won't go through all of those provisions verbally here in court, but that order regarding closing argument is one that I enter every trial I've ever presided over as a judge, whether it's a felony trial when I was in a felony division or in this civil division I'm in right now. And this order puts boundaries on the types of closing arguments that can be given in cases. And Mr. Kaczurgis, did you receive that closing argument order?
I did, Your Honor, and I reviewed it.
All right, very good. Then I'll expect you to abide by that order as we get to closing argument. And so please review it before we get to that point. All right, so at this time, I've completed my preliminary housekeeping instructions for court personnel and plaintiff's counsel. Mr. Kaczurgis, are there any other matters that you need to advise the court of or inquire of our remote bailiffs of or the special magistrate with regard to any issues, whether it be technology issues or other issues I haven't addressed?
No, Your Honor, I think we're good.
Okay. Mr. Smith, do you have an idea as to where we are with the process in the remote jury assembly room? Have the bailiffs completed, the remote jury bailiffs completed the PowerPoint presentation as Mr. Corrigan completed the confirmation of the jurors' identification?
Yes, sir, Your Honor. We are ready to bring the jurors into the remote courtroom.
Okay. Right. So if everyone's ready, at this time, we'll go ahead and bring our remote jurors into the remote courtroom from the remote jury assembly room. All right, I'll now ask our remote jury bailiff, Mr. Muse, for all the remote jurors present and accounted for this morning, with the exception of juror number 3, who I excused for hardship.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Muse. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the remote jury panel. You can unmute your microphones.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to everyone. I'm so happy to say good morning to each of you as a jury panel. I haven't had that privilege and pleasure since the end of February, which was the last time that I saw a jury here in the Duval County Courthouse. So I'm so excited and happy to be able to give you that greeting here this morning. My name is Judge Bruce Anderson. I will be the judge presiding over this remote jury selection as well as the remote trial. I would like to welcome you to the Remote Civil Division, CVE, of the Circuit Court, 4th Judicial Circuit in and for Duval County, Florida. I want to start out, first of all, by thanking each of you on behalf of my colleagues here in the 4th Judicial Circuit for being here today remotely and offering to serve as a remote juror. The judges in this circuit realize that service on a jury, whether it's in person or remote, is a sacrifice, and it can interfere with your daily responsibilities at work and at home. However, service on a remote jury does afford you an opportunity to be part of the administration of justice, where the rights and liberties of the citizens and of our community are determined and protected. The first thing I'm going to need to do is confirm who each of you are and ask some very routine technology questions that will help us as we move forward today. So I'm going to go in order with the jurors that are present here today. So when I call your name or when I call your juror number and your name, please unmute your microphone. I'll ask you a few questions. I'm going to go in order. So I'll start first of all with juror number 1. Is it Bean or Ben?
Bean.
Bean. Miss Bean, good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, sir.
And you are LaTanya Faye Bean, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Miss Bean, can you hear me this morning?
Yes, sir.
Can you see me?
Yes, sir.
What device are you using to participate today?
I'm using my iPhone.
All right. Thank you, Miss Bean.
Sure.
And then that takes us to juror number 2, Jill Burns. Good morning, Miss Burns.
Good morning.
Good morning. Your audio is working great, and we've got that squared away.
Yes, sir.
Miss Bean, you are juror number 2, Jill. I'm sorry, Miss Burns, you are juror number 2, Jill Burns. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, Miss Burns, can you hear me this morning?
Yes, sir.
Miss Burns, can you see me?
Yes, sir.
What device are you using to participate in the proceedings this morning?
An iPad?
Okay. Thank you, Miss Burns.
Thank you.
That takes us to juror number 4, Miss Roberts. Good morning.
Sorry, good morning.
Good morning, Miss Roberts. You are Deborah Ann Roberts. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
All right, Miss Roberts, can you hear me this morning?
Yes, sir.
Can you see me this morning?
Yes, sir.
What device are you using to participate today?
I'm on my laptop computer.
All right, thank you, ma'am. That takes us to juror number 5, Mr. Vega. Good morning, Mr. Vega.
Morning.
Mr. Vega, you are Peter Vega, is that correct?
Correct.
And sir, can you hear me this morning?
Yes.
Can you see me?
Yes.
What device are you using to participate in the proceedings this morning?
HP laptop.
All right, thank you, sir. That takes us to juror number 7, Mr. Kindler. Good
Yes.
morning, Mr. Kindler.
Good morning.
Mr. Kindler, you are Ross Kindler, is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Kindler, can you hear me this morning?
Yes, sir.
Can you see me?
Yes, sir.
What device are you using to participate in the proceedings this morning?
I am on my laptop.
Thank you, sir. That takes us to juror number 8, Mr. Wells. Good morning,
Morning.
Mr. Wells.
Good morning.
Mr. Wells, can you hear me this morning?
I can.
Can you see me this morning?
I can.
What device are you using to participate today?
Laptop.
All right, thank you, sir.
Sure.
That takes us to juror number 10, is it Booth or Booth?
It's Booth, Your Honor.
Booth, okay. Good morning, Mr. Booth.
Good morning.
Mr. Booth, you are Henry Booth, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Booth, can you hear me this morning?
I can hear you.
Can you see me this morning?
I can see you.
All right, what device are you using to participate today?
I'm using my home laptop, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. You can go ahead and mute your microphone. Then that takes us to juror number 11, Ms. Lasher.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Lasher. You are Franny Lasher, is that correct?
That's correct.
Ms. Lasher, can you hear me this morning?
Yes, sir.
Can you see me this morning?
Yes, sir.
What device are you using to participate today?
I'm using a laptop.
All right, thank you.
You're most welcome.
That takes us to juror number 12, Ms. Smith. Good morning, Ms. Smith.
Good morning, sir.
Ms. Smith, you are Thelma Smith, is that correct?
That is correct.
Ms. Smith, can you hear me this morning?
I can.
Can you see me this morning?
I can.
What device are you using to participate today?
My laptop.
Thank you, ma'am. That takes us to juror number 13, Mr. Khan. Good morning, Mr. Khan.
This is Khan. Good morning.
I'm sorry, Miss Khan. I'm sorry.
No worries. It's early.
It's still early. So, Miss Khan, good morning.
Good morning.
And you are, is it Narang Khan?
Yes.
Okay. Miss Khan, can you hear me this morning?
Yes, I can.
Can you see me this morning?
Yes, I can.
What device are you using to participate today?
It's a personal desktop.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
That takes us to juror number 15, Mr. James. Good morning, Mr. James. You can unmute your microphone, Mr. James.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. James. You are Nathaniel James, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. James, can you hear me this morning?
Yes, sir.
Can you see me this morning?
Yes, sir.
What device are you using to participate here this morning?
I'm using my phone.
All right. Thank you, Mr. James. Let me remind all of you at this time, if at any time during this remote jury selection or during the remote jury trial itself, you're having trouble hearing what the court is saying or what anyone else is saying or seeing anyone or anything on your screen, please raise your hand or say something immediately so our remote jury bailiff can assist you. So please let us know immediately. We don't want you to go through this process and not be able to hear us or see us. In the email you previously received from our remote bailiffs, you were provided a contact cell phone numbers for Mike Smith and James Muse to assist you with any technology issues or questions. Do each of you have a contact cell phone number to reach a bailiff if you have problems and we can't see you or hear you? Did each one of you receive that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. If anyone didn't receive that, please raise your hand. All right, very good. Let the record reflect that none of our jurors have raised their hands on that question. So please feel free to call them if for some reason we have a complete technology meltdown and we can't see or hear you and you can't see us or hear us. So with that in mind, we'll go forward from here. The reason we want, because you are the first potential jurors to participate in remote jury selection in the Fourth Judicial Circuit, I'm going to ask you in advance and thank you in advance for your patience and your cooperation, because there may be some technical problems or delays that we don't ordinarily see during an in-person jury selection. And we've already had one of those earlier this morning. We lost, I think, probably somewhere around 20 or 25, 30 minutes with some issues that we had with connectivity with jurors and so forth. So those things do happen. And let me just say at the beginning that we have a great court technology office, and all of our court technology officers are wonderful. You've already interacted with a number of them this morning. And so anytime there's a technology glitch or a problem, that's my responsibility, and I'm the one to be blamed if there's a technology problem either from your end or from our end. It's my responsibility to make sure that everything works properly here in court. So please don't get frustrated with the court technology officers. all your frustration should be directed towards me, and I accept full responsibility. So with that being said, I want to thank you in advance for your patience and your understanding as we work through this remote jury selection. This is the first time that we've done this here in Jacksonville. This is the first time this has been done in the state of Florida, and very likely the first time it's been done in the United States of America. So you're making history today, but then with that historical moment comes the downside of also dealing with potential technology glitches. So with all that being said, thank you. I do have some very basic ground rules I need to give you this morning that would apply in a remote jury trial. They would not necessarily apply to an in-person trial. So if you were here today at the Duval County Courthouse, I would not likely be giving you these instructions the way I'm giving you these instructions this morning. These have been compiled after several practice trials that we've done here at the Duval County Courthouse with volunteers. So please bear with me. I am going to read these rules to you. They're very important, but I think they'll help you along the way. So listen closely. Number one, you must treat every court session the same way you would if you were physically at the Duval County Courthouse for jury duty. So if you were to walk in here one morning for jury selection, you'd have to be seated in a chair, give us your full attention. You have to put all your devices away, put away your books and newspapers, and anything else that would distract you, and just focus on what we're doing in here. So treat it just like you would if you're brought down to the physical Duval County Courthouse. Number two, do not turn off the video. Do not turn off your video while you're in court, while we're in session. We all need to be able to see each one of you, so please don't turn it off. Number three, do not get up and leave your Zoom meeting room while court is in session. So in other words, don't get so comfortable with what we're doing here today that you feel like you can just get up and leave to take care of something in your household or multitask or take care of something that needs to be addressed in your household or in your office. Please don't get up and leave because you need to be here the entire time, just like you would if you were in the physical Duval County Courthouse. If an emergency arises, some sudden emergency comes up in your home, you've left something on the stove and it's burning, or you've got a child at home who sounds like that they're having an emergency, or you've got a pet that's scratching at the door and barking and there's some emergency that you think your pet needs to go outside, or something's happening that's taking you away from your attention on these proceedings, please let us know and we can stop these proceedings and take a brief recess so you can address that. But please don't just get up and walk away. Please focus on the screen and the audio source of the device from which you're participating in this remote court session. You shouldn't have a split screen with social media on your screen or something from work on your screen or personal emails or other matters that you're concerned about. Please don't have music on in the background or a television show in the background. You should be focused on your screen, on this courtroom, and what's going on, what's coming through your speaker, what we're saying and doing here this morning. And follow that, there should be no other sites in your room, whatever location you're using to participate here today. So when I say sites, there should be no other screens up with other things on them. There shouldn't be any televisions on. You should be fully focused on what's on your screen related to this case only, not any other screens or images. While the remote court, number 6, while the remote court is in session, you cannot speak to anyone else in person or by any electronic device, whether it is someone in your home, a family member, or a coworker or employee. If you're participating in this remote court session, if we're in session, you can't talk to other person, just like if you're here at the Duval County Courthouse in person. You couldn't, while we're in session in here, you can't talk to other persons, including your fellow jurors. If you're participating in this remote jury selection from your home or place of business and there are other persons residing with you or co-employees or co-workers that you need to communicate with directly, that there's something that just can't wait, it's an emergency, there's a fire, there's something that's melting down that has to be dealt with, then please let us know immediately so we can stop the proceedings. Hopefully we won't have that, but if there are, then please let us know so we can address it. Number 7, you may have noticed that in the Zoom platform we are using for this remote jury trial that it has a chat message feature. You can actually chat and send messages to people in Zoom. You may have used Zoom before these proceedings today, so you may notice that there's a chat feature. So you need to ignore that for the purpose of today's proceedings, because Under no circumstances should you be sending any chat messages to any participants other than the remote bailiffs and our special magistrate, Ms. Hodak. That means no chat messages to the court. So no messages to me, no messages to Mr. Kachurgis, the plaintiff's counsel, no message to Ms. Griffin, the plaintiff, no message to the court reporter, to the clerks, or to the witnesses. As it concerns any chat messages that you may send or want to send to our remote bailiffs or to our special magistrate, Ms. Hodak, you should not send any messages to the remote bailiffs and special magistrates while court is in session. So while we're in session, we're doing stuff on the record in here, please don't be at your keyboard sending chat messages to the remote bailiffs or to Ms. Hodak. The only exception to that would be if you have some type of technology problem, such as not being able to hear us or not being able to see us, then you're allowed to send that message to them that you need help, and we can stop the proceedings so we can address any technology problems. Obviously, if there's an urgent situation or emergency and you're able to express that verbally or visually to us, you'll probably just get our attention by waving your hands and saying something to interrupt to let us know that there's an emergency in your household or at your office. But if for some reason you can't do that, it's perfectly fine to send a message to our remote bailiffs and/or our special magistrate to let us know that there's an emergency or an urgent situation. But otherwise, there should be no messages being sent during court sessions. The special magistrate, Ms. Hodak, and our remote bailiffs also have my permission to send chat messages to you within the limits of their duties and responsibilities. As it concerns your fellow jurors, so this morning you have a number of fellow jurors who are here in this jury panel. After you're done this morning, there'll be another jury panel that's going to arrive after you're done to go through the same process you're going through. Then we have 2 more tomorrow. So as it concerns your fellow jurors, do not send chat messages to them at any time, regardless of whether court is in session or not. Of course, while you're in recess, if for some reason we're in recess and we're taking a break for whatever reason, then you can certainly within the Zoom platform, while we're not in court and not on the record, you can have conversations with your fellow jurors using Zoom. You can talk about anything in the whole wide world, the Jaguars, vacation plans, whatever you'd like to talk about, just not about this case or the people or places involved in this case. What are the reasons for all of these restrictions on the use of Zoom chat messaging? The court does require your full attention to this trial, and what you're seeing on the screen and hearing via the electronic device you're using to participate in this trial. We don't want you to have any distractions. We don't want you looking at the screen to read chat messages or looking at your keyboard or looking at your screen to send chat messages. We want your focus to be on what's going on the screen with me and Mr. Kachurgis and everything else going on in the courtroom, and also want you focused with your ears on what's being said in here. Number 8, many of you may have cell phones, tablets, laptops, and many other electronic devices, including Apple Watches or other watches that can send and receive messages and data with you here in the remote courtroom. During this jury selection, any such electronic devices not being used by you to participate in this remote jury selection must be powered off, not airplane mode or silent or vibrate. You cannot have any such electronic devices in the remote courtroom once the trial begins. During the trial, you may use these devices during recesses, but even then you may not use your cell phone or other electronic device to find out any information about this case or communicate with anyone about the case or the people or places involved in this case. Do not take photographs, video recordings, or audio recordings of these proceedings or your fellow jurors. At the end of the case, while you are deliberating, you must not communicate with anyone outside the remote jury room. If someone needs to contact you in an emergency, the court can receive messages and deliver them to you without delay. A contact phone number has been provided to you by our remote bailiff, who can receive text messages or emails from your friends, family members, employers, and coworkers. Number 9, in addition, as it concerns whatever electronic device you're using to participate in this remote jury selection, please turn off or log out of any websites, social media, messaging services, email providers, direct messaging or instant messaging, anything at all that could possibly pop up on your screen and distract you from giving your undivided attention to this remote jury selection. So please make sure that none of that stuff can happen on your screen while we're doing this here this morning. Number 10, because of the historic nature of how this trial is being conducted remotely, there may be some media and news coverage of this jury selection and the trial. Courtroom View Network, who I'll refer to as CVN, is broadcasting this trial for the public to watch for free, just as they would be able to do so in an in-person trial when they can just walk into the Duval County Courthouse, come into one of our courtrooms, and take a seat in the gallery and watch the proceedings. We do have government in the sunshine. That also includes the courthouse. And so we're not allowed to have secret trials. And so this is being broadcast via CVN, and we appreciate CVN doing this for free so the public can watch this trial as we go along. Do not attempt, for you all, during the course of these proceedings today, and then after you recess at end of jury selection today, please do not watch any media coverage of this trial until after your jury service is completed and you're discharged. I won't be able to tell you today whether you're going to be serving on this jury or not until after the last jury panel goes through jury selection tomorrow. So you're still on the jury until you're discharged, so please don't read any news accounts of this case or these proceedings. Don't attempt to watch anything on CVN concerning this trial. Stay far away from any coverage of this case or this trial. We're now at the point of jury selection where I need to talk to you about the oath that you're going to take here this morning. Through the process of remote jury selection this morning, we're going to select 8 jurors, 8 people from your panel and the other jury panels that are going to be appearing in this courtroom today and tomorrow to try this case. Before we begin, our remote deputy clerk, Mr. Corrigan, is going to administer the oath to you, to all prospective remote jurors. The oath simply requires you to answer all questions during the jury selection truthfully and completely. Before administering the oath, I'm going to ask our remote deputy trial clerk, Mr. Corrigan, to confirm for the record that by the display of each of the prospective jurors' photo identification, that each one was summoned for remote jury duty, and each one is duly qualified to serve by their written responses to Part B of their summons that was submitted in advance of their appearance today. Mr. Corrigan, can you confirm that?
I can, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Corrigan. At this time, I'll ask all the jurors to unmute their microphones, and Mr. Corrigan will administer the oath.
Will you all please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will answer truthfully all questions asked of you as prospective jurors, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
All right, thank you, Mr. Corrigan. Everyone can put your hands down. And you can leave your microphones unmuted because I have a quick question I need to ask you that's very important right away. I'll need your verbal response. So each of you, before you came here today, would have received an email from our remote bailiff that would have had in that package a questionnaire that you filled out in advance, and you all were wonderful in filling that out in advance, and we do appreciate that. And there are also links to 2 videos. One was a clerk of court video, and the other one was from the Florida Supreme Court. Did each one of you watch both of those videos that were sent in a link to you by the email before today's proceedings?
I did.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
No, I didn't.
I did.
Right, so I think the majority said yes, but there were a couple I heard that said no. So could you please raise your hand if you said no? Okay, I see Ms. Burns and Ms. Khan raise their hands. So Ms. Burns, did you see either of the videos?
I didn't, and I totally forgot. Sorry.
That's okay. I mean, that can happen. These are all, there's a lot of things going on in everyone's personal lives, and I know that can happen. I'm not saying that to embarrass you. So Ms. Khan, did you see either one of the videos?
I did not. Same thing. I forgot.
Well, the good news is that we have those videos available, and then they're also relatively short. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask that we start with the video by the clerk's office, and I'm going to go ahead and ask our remote trial bailiff to show that video for your benefit. And so we're going to start out first of all with the clerk's video, and when we're done with that, we'll show the Florida Supreme Court video immediately after that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone can mute their microphones.
I'm Brian Corrigan, and I'm with the Duval County Clerk's Office. I'd like to be the first to welcome you and thank you for participating in this remote jury process. I'm currently speaking to you from the jury assembly room in the Duval County Courthouse. In normal times, you would be gathered in this room with me for jury qualification, but as we all know, we are not in normal times. I'd like to thank you for taking part in this historic event. Just like serving in the military or voting, jury service is one of the few times we are called upon to act in the civic process in our society, and I thank you for answering that call. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what will happen when you log in for your session of remote jury qualification. I will ask you to have your photo ID handy as you log in, as I will verify your identity and place in the jury pool. Then I will swear you in, and you will swear an oath to tell the truth throughout the process. And then the judge and the attorneys will come out and ask you some questions to serve in their decision-making on who ultimately serves on the seated jury. I'd like to thank you in advance for your attendance and attention throughout the process, and thank you again for serving as a remote juror.
All right, we can now show the Florida Supreme Court video.
Good morning, friends. Welcome to your judicial system. And I am Fred Lewis. I have the privilege of serving you as your Chief Justice. And while I'm in Tallahassee, all of us are vitally concerned at what's happening in the local community today, as you have reported for jury duty. And make no mistake, I use the phrase your judicial system, because this system does belong to you. It will not operate without you, and it exists solely to serve you. It does not exist to serve the judges. It does not exist to serve those who work within the building, but it exists only to resolve disputes between our government and the citizens, between citizens, and involving businesses when those disputes cannot be otherwise resolved. Now, I know all of you have come here this morning with different anticipations and from different settings and from different circumstances, and we understand and recognize that. And we understand the sacrifice that many of you have had to make to be here this morning. But I hope you truly understand that by your being here, whether you serve on a jury or not, that it is extremely important that you be here, because so many cases will be resolved in other parts of this building while you're sitting here waiting, because those individuals know that a fair-minded group of individuals are here ready and prepared to hear the evidence and make a decision. I think you need to understand that the reason you're here is that we trust you, the citizens of the state trust you, I trust you, as a fair-minded group of individuals willing to take time from your day-to-day activities to participate in this democracy and make decisions for the government on the only opportunity that you will ever have. I know that it may have taken you away from some other things that may be important to you, but I cannot overstress to you how important it is that you're here today, that you're participating, and that you believe in this great democracy. As I was riding to work this morning, I came in behind a van that said, "Freedom is not free, just ask any soldier." I think we need only ask also any juror. Liberty and freedom is not free. We will not remain a free people without the jury system, and you're part of that system, and you're making this happen. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you. I'll ask a quick question of our jurors. Can everyone see me and hear me after we finish that video?
Yes.
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 Yes,
If
I
anyone's-
can.
Very
Yes,
good. If anyone's having trouble hearing me or seeing me, please raise your hand. All right. In thinking about today's very special jury selection and the importance of your service as you answered your call to jury duty, a memory came back to me the past couple of days I wanted to share with you, because I think it's very pertinent and very relevant to what the former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court said to you in that video. And the memory came to my mind of a time period about 5 years ago before I became a circuit court judge. I was still a trial lawyer. It was December, it was a holiday season, and we were coming to the end of a 4-week complex civil jury trial. We had all the surrounding stresses of a lengthy jury trial, all the time demands of the holiday season. And I was one of several trial attorneys that was trying that case. And when we came to the end of that trial, a 4-week trial during the holiday season, when a juror was discharged, this gentleman completed his service. He could have just walked out of the courtroom and never said a word. And he asked the court if he could say something. And the judge allowed him to say something. He was a middle-aged man, and he had served his community in the military and as a firefighter. And when he started to speak, he was tearing up. His voice was breaking and trembling with emotion, and he addressed the judge and all the attorneys who tried the case, including me. And I'll never forget what he said. It's going to remain with me for the rest of my life. And I always think of it when I think of jury service. He told all of us that it was an honor and a privilege to serve on the jury. He compared the sounds of freedom that he heard in the military, the sounds of jets and guns, to the sounds of the courtroom during a trial, the testimony, the objections, the court rulings, and the instructions from the court. He told all of us that he hoped that the sounds of freedom he heard in our courtroom would never end. Since the COVID-19 crisis began in the middle of March, the Duval County Courthouse has been very, very quiet. There's been very limited public access. The hearings and the non-jury trials that we've conducted here have been done by Zoom, the Zoom platform, or they've been done by telephone. So we've kept on working. We as judges, with the cooperation and hard work of the attorneys and the court personnel, have followed all the Florida Supreme Court's orders to keep our cases moving along within the limits of technology. But despite all of our hard work, as it concerns civil jury trials, the sounds of freedom from our courtrooms have been silenced by the COVID-19 virus since mid-March. So we've had nothing but silence as it concerns jury trials. You've each received a summons for remote jury duty. It may not look like an invitation, but it really is an invitation for each of you to participate in this great American experiment of self-government that has been conducted for over 244 years. You may be sitting there in front of your screen right now thinking, why me? Why am I the one doing this today? Why am I here? Why am I going through this morning? The answer to that question is found at the very beginning of the United States Constitution. The preamble to the Constitution begins with the phrase, "We the people." We the people. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. What was true in 1787 is still true today. We the people. We establish a system of government in which we the people are sovereign. In order for our government to function, the people are required to individually participate in a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. A quick review of the United States Constitution reveals other areas besides jury duty where you can participate in government, such as the right to vote, assemble together for peaceful purposes such as church, work, peaceful protest, and obviously military service. Those are all examples of where citizens participate in government. When citizens like you participate in government, you make our Constitution come to life. When I use that phrase, come to life, I'm not talking about whether the Constitution should be interpreted as a living, breathing document or whether it's strict construction as to what the founders wrote. I'm not getting into that legal dispute about how to interpret the Constitution. I'm talking about the more basic concept of our Constitution coming to life. When you participate, the great words that are written in that Constitution come to life by your great acts of service and sacrifice. Without your participation, our Constitution is just paper and words and no action. By you doing this today, you brought our Constitution to life. To sum it all up, each one of you were summoned here to participate in a remote jury trial and jury duty because you are the source of constitutional power. Our court system would not work or function fully without each of you as jurors. Each of you are making history today. You are each restoring the sound of freedom to the Duval County Courthouse by your remote appearance here today, and I thank you for that. You are making history today because you are part of the first totally remote civil jury trial by your participation in jury selection. It's going to be totally remote from jury selection through verdict. None of you will ever come to the courthouse during this trial. You will stay at home or your office or wherever you're doing this from for the entire trial. The lawyers will not be in the courthouse. The witnesses will not be in the courthouse. The court reporter will not be in the courthouse. The trial clerk and the remote bailiffs will be in completely different areas of the courthouse. In this courtroom, it will be just one remote courtroom bailiff, Mr. Ashley, who's also a court technology officer, and myself. We're the only ones in courtroom 601 in the physical Duval County Courthouse. If you are selected to serve as one of our 8 remote trial jurors, your verdict will be binding, even though you never physically come to the Duval County Courthouse. With all of that being said, I need to know whether any of you may experience a hardship if you're selected to serve as a remote juror to try this case. I've reviewed your responses to the hardship questions in the questionnaire and noted that I believe we had at least one juror that I noticed, Ms. Burns, juror number 2, who indicated a potential hardship with serving in this case due to conflicts with her husband's schedule. So we'll address that in a moment. But before you all can answer that question with certainty about whether or not this is a hardship or confirm what you state in your questionnaire concerning hardship, I need to first explain to you what's going to be expected of you in terms of an anticipated trial schedule. And so I will tell you that the court has been working very hard with everyone involved in this historic trial to try to streamline the case and the evidence and the testimony that's needed. So I can give you the following estimates of time. So today, I know we started a little bit late, about a half hour late because of technology issues, and I apologize for that. But my best estimate is that we should be hopefully done with this jury selection somewhere around 10:45. And then there'll be another jury panel that will come in after that. And then if you're selected to serve on the trial jury in this case, and we'll let you know that by email, one way or the other, you'll get an email saying you're on the jury or you're not on the jury by tomorrow afternoon. But if you're selected to serve, this trial will take place this Monday, August the 10th at 9 a.m. I anticipate that this trial will probably be finished on Monday. We start at 9 a.m. We'll take a comfort break in the morning for about 15 minutes. We'll take another 1 or 2 breaks in the afternoon, depending upon how things are going, if necessary, for comfort breaks. We'll take a lunch recess in the middle of the day for about an hour for y'all to eat and do whatever you need to do with a lunch break. And then hopefully, my belief is that this case will be in your hands and you'll be deliberating the case at some point Monday afternoon. There is a very slight possibility that with technology issues and the things that may occur in this trial, just the inherent nature of dealing with technology and Zoom, that there could be some issues that could take us into the following day with technology. If that's true, if that happens, then you would come back at 9 a.m. on Tuesday with the understanding that the case will definitely be finished by no later than Tuesday at the latest. But my best estimate right now is that this case will likely be concluded on Monday, August the 10th. Once the case is in your hands and you're deliberating remotely, there'll be no time limit on how long you deliberate. You can deliberate for as long or as short a time as necessary to reach unanimous verdict in your case. I know that most of you will be understandably concerned about being away from work for that length of time or being prevented from handling your day-to-day responsibilities at home or in other areas of your life during this time period that you're remotely participating in this trial. But before you respond to the question of whether or not this is a hardship for you, I want you to consider what is at stake. The Bill of Rights in our federal Constitution and the Declaration of Rights in our state Constitution guarantee all of us the right to a trial by jury to resolve our civil disputes. This is a very, very important right. It dates back to the very founding of our country and is a cornerstone of our system of civil justice. It means that the citizens of our community, applying the laws that we all must follow, determine the rights and liberties that are at stake in each civil case. We use the term service when we speak about jurors because selection as a juror is a significant service to your community. Outside of voting and serving in the armed forces, I do not know of a more important service that you can provide to your community, because the right to a trial by jury is meaningless without your participation. It means nothing. It's just words on paper unless you participate. Quite simply, neither I nor any of my fellow judges can afford the citizens of our community the right to a trial by jury if I do not have anyone that is willing and able to serve. Because of the importance of the right to a trial by jury, a hardship that will excuse a person from jury service is more than a disruption or an inconvenience to your normal day-to-day responsibilities. If the question was, is this inconvenient or is this a disruption, then everyone would raise their hands and we never have a jury. So the things I've considered in the past that as hardships, I'll give you some examples of things that I've found to be hardships in the past. A medical condition that prevents you from sitting for the required time period, might be caring for an ill family member or someone with special needs and no one to cover, a non-refundable ticket for a trip, a final exam that you would flunk because the professor won't give you an excuse or an extension of time to take the exam. Again, I know that serving as a juror is in a 1-day or possibly 2-day trial calls for a sacrifice. I hope you will consider how important the right to a trial by jury is to preserve that freedom that we all enjoy before you decide whether or not you have a hardship in this case. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to address juror number 2, Ms. Burns. Ms. Burns, you can unmute your microphone. Ms. Burns, in reading your questionnaire, you indicated that that your husband is, and I don't want to get anything about what he's doing on the grand jury, but your husband's also serving as a juror on a grand jury, and that he, with his schedule on Wednesdays, he's serving, and so there's a potential conflict for you. So Ms. Burns, knowing that this case would be finished on Monday or Tuesday at the very, very latest, would this present a hardship to you, the current schedule?
No, sir.
All right, very good then. Then I'll address the other, all of our remaining jurors who did not indicate a hardship on their questionnaires. Do any of you feel like that the schedule I've given you here today would present a hardship for you to serve on this jury? If so, please raise your hand. All right, I see one juror with his hand raised. That's for the record, that's Mr. Booth, juror number 10. Did anyone else raise their hand? All right, so Mr. Booth, you can unmute your microphone.
Yeah, sure.
And if you need to talk about your hardship with me privately, we can certainly go to the remote sidebar and we can discuss it. But can you tell us in general, or tell the court in general, what that hardship would be?
Yes, Your Honor. Sir, this is my first time serving jury duty, and I actually wanted to give back a little bit. But this is the last 2 weeks of class at FSCJ. And I'm taking four classes at this time, and I'm currently supposed to be doing a presentation at this time as well. So I'm kind of taking a loss on those grades.
Okay, so have you discussed this with your professors about your jury service?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And are they willing to give you an extension to get your project, your presentations completed, or maybe an extension of time to take the exam with having to serve on a jury?
So yes, sir. They try to be as lenient as they can, but the way it looks right now, I'll be packing on a lot of assignments at the last minute. It's four classes, and
that's quite, Mr. Booth, that's quite a load for a summer semester, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm trying to get it done as soon as possible. So.
Well, I commend you for your self-discipline, your desire to get your education completed. So. With that in mind, Mr. Kajurgis, did you want to inquire of Mr. Booth further?
Your Honor, I have to be candid. I have some connectivity issues that have been going on for about the last 15 minutes. So it's been spotty as to what I've been able to pick up. And indeed, my screen currently is frozen with everyone. So I did not hear the beginning of Mr. Booth's recitation of what the hardship was. I understand it's related to school, but I'm having some real connectivity issues right now.
Okay, so why don't we do, why don't we try this? Why don't we try this then? Let's go, well, let's see if we can go. Can you all send Mr. Kachurgis to the remote sidebar? And what I'll need is I'll need Mr. Kachurgis in the remote sidebar and Mr. Booth as well, along with our court reporter to the remote sidebar. So maybe Mr. Smith could join us in the remote sidebar, and Ms. Hodak and Mr. Booth and our court reporter at the remote sidebar to confer about Mr. Booth, and also maybe to figure out what we're going to do with Mr. Kachurgis's technology issue.
Thank you,
And
Governor.
my estimate for this will be a 10-minute sidebar. So for those of you that are in the jury, you're going to remain in the remote courtroom. I'm going to remote sidebar. And what you're going to have on the screen is you're going to have a clock on the screen with a countdown. So this is a good opportunity during these 10 minutes. You're not on the record. We're not in session. So this is an opportunity for you. If you need to take a comfort break, go to the restroom, you can get a cup of coffee, refill your beverage cup. You can get a snack. If you have a load of laundry in the washer you want to throw in the dryer, you can do that. You can take care of a pet that may need to take a comfort break outside, or if your children have an issue, whatever you need to do, during these 10 minutes, you're in recess. But my instruction to you is please don't talk about the case or the people or places involved in this case. Please don't attempt to do any research about the case. When you come back to your screen, that countdown clock is going to be your marker. And so we need you back in front of your screen when the 10 minutes are up. And then we'll hopefully be ready to go back on the record at that time. But please, when you come back on, when court's back in session, the same rules apply I gave you early this morning. All those devices need to be turned off, no distractions, no other screens, no televisions, nothing at all. You're back on the screen just like before. So with that, I'm going to instruct our bailiff, Mr. Ashley, to put that countdown clock, that stopwatch on the screen. We'll be in recess for 10 minutes. And then I'll meet Mr. Smith, Ms. Hodak, Mr. Booth, and the court reporter, and Mr. Kachurgis at sidebar. All right, thank you. We're back on the record again, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. The first question I'm going to ask you is the same question I asked at the beginning was, and be very quick, is can everyone see me and can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right, very good. We've covered that. So welcome back, and this is, and if you are if you're selected to serve as one of our jurors in this trial, you will quickly learn that my time estimates tend to be off. And I try to be as close as I can. In some trials, I'm better than other trials. And with this being a very new process, my time estimates may be off. So what began as 5 minutes ended up being more like 15 minutes. So you have some bonus time in there. So I apologize for any delays that went beyond the time period that it took to do what I thought we were going to do. We did have some technical glitches to resolve. So I appreciate your patience as always. So we are back on the record. We're waiting on Mr. Kachurgis, and I see that he's coming in. Mr. Kachurgis, welcome back. Mr. Kachurgis, can you hear me and see me?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Ms. Griffin, can you hear me and see me?
Yes, I can.
All right, very good then. Mr. Kachurgis, I was just apologizing to the jury earlier that my estimated break time of 5 minutes went to 15, and it's always my responsibility when we're running behind. And so I thank you everyone for your patience. The first order of business I need to address is Mr. Booth, juror number 10, after consulting with counsel at sidebar, we are going to excuse you. Your jury service is now completed. We thank you for your time and attention this morning. We thank you for your service this morning. We understand you have some pressing deadlines at school and exams. And so we are going to excuse you for hardship this morning, and with our collective thanks for your service and also our collective best wishes as you complete this semester at FSCJ. We hope that everything goes well. My only instruction to you is that you not talk about this case or your experience as a juror here this morning until the case is concluded on Monday, until there's a verdict in the case, not to discuss it, not to go on social media and talk about it, and not to engage in discussion with others about it until after the case is concluded. Okay, Mr. Booth?
Yes, Your Honor, and thank you.
And Mr. Booth, let me also tell you that you're going to be getting an email from us thanking you for your service, but that email is going to have a link on there that's very, very, very important. It's going to have a survey on there that we need you to complete, because that's going to give us information that we can report to the Florida Supreme Court about your experience here today and things that you thought went well, things that maybe didn't go as well as you liked. Honest and straightforward information that we need to help us going forward with the project. So please answer that survey, okay?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank
All right,
you.
well, thank you so much for your service. Have a good day, and best of luck with your assignments and your exams to come. And you can now leave the remote courtroom.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Booth. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as I said earlier, each one of you are making history here today by participating in this remote civil jury trial. So there are things that you have already done and will do that no jury has ever done before. This remote civil jury trial is possible because the Florida Supreme Court created a remote civil jury trial pilot program and awarded this project to only 5 circuits in Florida. This circuit, the 4th Circuit, is one of them. This project will end October 2nd, 2020. And because this has never been done, we are doing many new things, including that juror questionnaire that each one of you filled out before we started today. Being the first remote civil jury trial, being the first remote civil trial jury, you are helping us find things out that we need to change going forward and improve for the next remote civil jury trial. All of you are kind enough to complete the online jury questionnaire. And I have copies of all your questionnaires here in my hand. And I am going to be marking your jury questionnaires that were completed as Court's Composite Exhibit A for identification. And these questionnaires will be tendered under seal to our trial clerk. So they'll be sealed for confidentiality, as they do contain a lot of sensitive background information about each one of you that we wanted in advance of the trial. So I will be saving these and preserving them for the record as Court's Composite Exhibit A. And when we received those back, we discovered a minor issue that one of our remote jurors brought to our attention. So that questionnaire had basic biographical information. It had your litigation history in there. It had your history of whether or not you've ever served as a juror before, basic background information. But one of our remote jurors messaged our remote bailiffs and said, there's one thing that doesn't work on the questionnaire, and that is in the litigation history, it only allows for really one report of prior litigation experience. It doesn't allow for additional experiences. So if someone had 2 or 3 or 4 different litigation experiences as a plaintiff or defendant or whatever the case may be, it didn't allow room to fill all that in. And so that's one of the things that we're learning through this process. So with that being said, I want to give each one of you an opportunity to let us know if any of you all had the same problem, that when you got to litigation history of the questionnaire, that you felt like that you weren't able to give us a full report. Did anyone here feel like that they weren't able to fully fill out their litigation history on the questionnaire? So please raise your hand. All right, let the record reflect that none of our jurors have raised their hands, so their litigation history in the questionnaire is complete. I now need to introduce the case and the participants in this remote civil jury trial to you. The name of this case is Plaintiff Cayla Griffin versus Defendant Albanese Enterprise, Inc., doing business as Paradise. Later during the remote jury selection, I will provide you more details about the subject matter of this case. For now, you should be aware that this is a civil trial involving allegations of battery by 2 employees of the defendant. A civil trial is different from a criminal case where a defendant is charged by the state prosecutor with committing a crime. The subject matter of a civil trial is a disagreement between people or companies. Where the claims of one or more of these parties have been brought to court to be resolved, it is called a trial of a lawsuit. The first order of business here today is to introduce you to the court personnel and participants in this trial and explain their various roles to you. As I stated before, I will be the judge that presides over this case. You may hear people occasionally refer to me as the court. That is the formal name for my role. My job is to maintain order and decide how to apply the rules of law to the trial. I will also explain to you various rules that you need to follow to do your job if you're selected to be a remote juror. It is my responsibility to remain neutral on the issues involved in this case. And Corrine Hodak is our special magistrate. She should be appearing on the screen momentarily. She is the special magistrate for the 4th Judicial Circuit's remote civil jury trial project. Special Magistrate Hodak's duties and responsibilities will be to oversee the remote bailiffs and ensure that our remote courtroom trial procedures are being followed and that all of your technology is working properly as well. However, Special Magistrate Hodak cannot answer any questions about this case. Only I can do that. I've already used the term plaintiff and defendant to describe the parties involved in this lawsuit. A party who files a lawsuit is called the plaintiff. A party that is sued is called the defendant. The plaintiff in this case is appearing remotely and represented by counsel who is also appearing remotely. The attorney on your screen with the phrase plaintiff's attorney represents the plaintiff, who is the party who filed the lawsuit in this case. His job as an attorney, his job is to present the plaintiff's side of things to you. As an attorney, he has taken an oath to do his very best and follow the rules for his profession. At this time, I would ask plaintiff's counsel to introduce himself as well as his client, who appears on the screen with the word plaintiff. Mr. Kaczurgas?
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Matthew Kaczurgas, and I'm the plaintiff's attorney or counsel for plaintiff Cayla Griffin, who you can see on the screen, designated as plaintiff. And thank you all for your service here this morning.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kaczurgas. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defendant, Albanese Enterprise, Inc., doing business as Paradise, has exercised its right not to participate in this trial. You've already met Brian Corrigan, who is the deputy clerk who confirmed your identifications for you in this morning. The persons that are about to appear on your screen this morning will have the label trial clerk as well. And they are Nate Rogerson and Diana Irizarry. They're appearing on the screen, and you'll see them with the label clerk. They are our deputy clerks of court. They will be the trial clerks during this trial. If you're selected to serve, you will see them during the course of the trial. They are here to assist me with some of the mechanics of the trial process, including numbering and collecting of the exhibits that are introduced as evidence during the course of the trial. And one of the trial clerks may or can place witnesses under oath before they provide their testimony. And we also have another deputy clerk who's logged in, Kelly Poole, who is a court operations supervisor for civil trial clerk. She's also appearing on your screen. She'll be with us today only. She will not be with us tomorrow or during the trial. So thank you to our deputy trial clerks, all three of them, for being here today and helping us in this remote civil jury trial. The person sitting at the stenograph machine that's about to appear on your screen is our court reporter. And she will have the phrase on her screen, court reporter. And I believe she will be appearing momentarily.
The host has stopped me from sharing my video, Your Honor.
Okay, well, our court reporter in this case is Stephanie Shear, and her job is to keep an accurate record of everything we say or do during the trial, including statements and comments made during jury selection by the attorneys and by me, as well as comments made by the prospective jurors. There she is. There's our court reporter, Ms. Shear, appearing on your screen. And they're very quiet. They don't say very much, but they keep a very accurate record of what we say and do here in court. So we are very appreciative of Madam Court Reporter and her remote presence here in the trial today. Before going further with introductions, I'd like to take this opportunity to make you aware that when you respond to questions asked during jury selection, make sure that you provide a complete verbal response. And please pause before speaking in this remote courtroom in response to the court, the clerk, or the attorneys. This reduces the risk of more than one person speaking at a time due to satellite and signal delays. So just be mindful of that when one of us may speak to you. Just pause a moment before you answer. In our normal conversations, we often nod our head to indicate yes or shake our head no. We use terms like uh-huh or uh-uh to signify yes or no, and people in normal conversation understand what that means, and it's common, and I understand that everyone does that in their normal daily conversations, but please don't do that during the course of jury selection here today. We may know what you mean, but the court reporter doesn't want to be in a position of interpreting what your sounds or shaking of heads mean. So please be mindful of that. We need a yes or no in response to our questions or some verbal explanation. Also, the limits of technology in a remote setting can cause problems hearing your voices. So if I or the court reporter or the attorney ask you to restate your answer, do not be offended. We are simply trying to make sure that the record accurately reflects exactly what you intend to communicate by your answer. The persons on your screen with the title bailiff are Mike Smith, James Muse, and I believe Patrick Estelila is also on, there he is, Mr. Estelila is on the screen as well. And they are a remote bailiffs for this trial. Mr. Smith and Mr. Estelila are what I would call trial bailiffs, and Mr. Muse is a jury bailiff. Mr. Estelila may actually wear both hats and be both a jury and a trial bailiff. And their roles are somewhat divided and somewhat they overlap with each other. They're all court technology officers. They do an incredible job here in the physical courthouse. They've done an incredible job putting this together today. And so Mr. Smith and Mr. Estelila may work more with the court and with the participants on any technology issues here in court. Mr. Muse is dedicated almost entirely to working with each one of you as our jurors to make sure that you're able to connect and don't have any technology problems. And Mr. Muse and Mr. Estelila may be showing you PowerPoints to give you skills that you'll need for each part of the trial. Regardless of what their duties and responsibilities are, they are my eyes and ears to you. They are my eyes and ears and my representatives to you to assist you with any technology problems you may have during remote jury selection or during the remote jury trial. And as my representatives, they're also to engage with you on routine matters like comfort and safety and logistics and schedule and whatever else that you need during the time period that you're serving. So they're wearing both the hat of the court technology officer and a traditional bailiff. But regardless of anything that you need, setting that aside, Any substantive questions about the case or about legal questions, anything like that, the bailiffs cannot answer any of your questions about the case. Only I can do that. The special magistrate can't do it and the bailiffs can't do it. Last but not least is the remote trial jury. That is you. We're going to begin to select in a few moments from among all of you our remote trial jury. The remote jury's job will be to decide what the facts are and what the facts mean. Jurors should be as neutral as possible at this point and have no fixed opinion about the lawsuit. In order to have a fair and lawful trial, there are rules that all jurors must follow. The basic rule is that jurors must decide the case only on the evidence presented in the remote courtroom. You must not communicate or talk with anyone, including your fellow jurors, friends, family members, or coworkers about this case or anything having to do with this trial, the people and places involved in this trial, or your remote jury service. You must not disclose your thoughts about this case or ask for advice about how to decide this case. I want to stress that this rule means you must not use electronic devices or computers to communicate with anyone about this case, including tweeting, texting, blogging, emailing, posting information on a website or chat room or any other means at all. Do not send or accept any messages to or from anyone about this case or your jury service. Also, please don't invite anyone into your remote location to watch the remote jury selection or trial with you. You must participate alone in this process whenever court is in session. You must not do any research or look up words, names, maps, or anything else that may have anything to do with this case. This includes reading newspapers, watching television, or using a computer, cell phone, the internet, any electronic device, or any other means at all to get information related to this case or the people and places involved in this case. This applies whether you're in the remote courthouse, at home, or anywhere else. What are the reasons for these rules? These rules are imposed because jurors must decide this case without distraction and only on the evidence presented in this remote courtroom. If you investigate, research, or make inquiries on your own outside the remote courtroom, the trial judge has no way to make sure that the information you obtain is proper for this case. The parties likewise have no opportunity to dispute or challenge the accuracy of what you find. That is contrary to our judicial system, which assures every party the right to ask questions about and challenge the evidence being considered against it and to present argument with respect to that evidence. Any independent investigation that you conduct on your own unfairly and improperly prevents the parties from having that opportunity our judicial system promises. Any juror who violates these restrictions jeopardizes the fairness of these proceedings, and a mistrial could result that would require the entire trial process to start over. A mistrial is a tremendous expense and inconvenience to the parties, the court, and the taxpayers. If you violate these rules, you may be held in contempt of court and face sanctions such as serving time in jail, paying a fine, or both. All of your communications with the remote courtroom personnel or me will be part of the record of these proceedings. That means these communications shall either be made in open court with the remote court reporter present, or if they are in writing, the writing will be filed with the remote trial clerk. I have instructed the remote courtroom personnel that any communications they have with you outside of my presence must be reported to me, and I will tell the parties and their attorneys about any communication from you that I believe may be of interest to you. However, you may communicate directly with our remote bailiffs or our remote special magistrate about matters concerning comfort and safety and technology, about logistics and schedule. Those are routine. They don't have to be reported to me. They don't have to be done on the record. So you may have issues with Zoom video conferencing, with invitations about how to get into Zoom, technology or internet problems, device problems. You may have questions about what items you can bring into the remote courtroom. And you may have questions about what you should wear, things of that nature. Those are all perfectly fine to address with our remote bailiffs and remote special magistrate. However, if you become aware of any violation of these instructions I've given you this morning or any other instruction I give in this case, you must tell me by sending a written note, written chat message to the remote bailiff or special magistrate via the private Zoom chat message, and that'll be relayed to me. After each recess, please double check to make sure that your cell phone or other electronic device not being used by you to participate in this remote jury selection is turned off completely. Also, please make sure that you do not bring your cell phone or other electronic device not being used by you to participate in this remote jury selection into the remote courtroom, or if you're selected to serve on this remote jury once the remote trial begins. We can't have any distractions at all. Please store those devices you're not using to participate in this jury selection trial in a secure location in your home that will be out of your sight and hearing and not be a distraction to you. I want to give you an overview at this time or explanation of how the jury selection process works so that you might have a better idea of what you can expect as we move forward. The parties will select 8 jurors to hear this case. At the start of the jury selection, I will read a general description of the case, including the names of potential remote witnesses and participants, and I will ask you a series of questions about your knowledge of the alleged facts, witnesses, and participants. Each of you should have already responded to a written online questionnaire that I already discussed this morning that's going to be saved for the record as Court Composite Exhibit A for identification and sealed for confidentiality. You've already handled all that, so the attorney, Mr. Kajurgis, already has access to that information, so you've done that in advance. That's going to save us some time. And then at a certain point, Mr. Kajurgis is going to have an opportunity to ask you more specific questions about this case to determine whether or not you can be fair and impartial to both sides given the issues that are involved. I will then meet with the plaintiff's attorney, Mr. Kajurgis, and his client, Ms. Griffin, remotely outside of your presence. They will advise me of their selections for the jury in this case. And as I said earlier, that discussion won't take place until tomorrow after the final jury panel goes through jury selection. It is anticipated that your jury selection will be completed this morning. We are behind schedule, and I apologize for that, but we will be done this morning with jury selection, then we'll move on to the next panel. As I stated earlier, I'll begin jury selection by asking you a series of questions concerning your knowledge of the factual allegations and participants in this case. My first question to you is designed to see if you have any knowledge about the facts and issues that are involved in this case. So please pay close attention to my description of the case, because I'm then going to ask you if you have any familiarity with this case. This case involves plaintiff Cayla Griffin seeking damages against her former employer, defendant Albanese Enterprise, Inc., doing business as Paradise, for injuries she suffered at the hands of 2 other employees of the establishment, Marcus Bruschi and George Malcolm. On February 26, 2018, Ms. Griffin was beaten by the 2 men as she attempted to retrieve her belongings from inside. Ms. Griffin filed suit against Albanese Enterprise, Inc., doing business as Paradise, alleging a claim of battery based upon Mr. Malcolm and Mr. Bruschi intentionally and unlawfully striking Ms. Griffin against her will and without legal justification. The court has already determined that defendant Albanese Enterprise, Inc., doing business as Paradise, is liable for the battery committed against Ms. Griffin by its employees, Mr. Malcolm and Mr. Bruschi. Your only job will be to determine the amount of damages Ms. Griffin is entitled to for compensation for the injuries she suffered. Ms. Griffin is seeking damages for the injuries she suffered, medical and dental expenses, pain and suffering, mental anguish, and emotional distress. Do any of you have any knowledge of this incident or this case prior to today? I need you to unmute your microphones. I need a verbal response.
Yeah.
I do not.
No.
No.
All right.
No.
Did anyone, it sounded like the majority of you, if not all of you, answered no to that question. Did anyone have a different answer to the majority? If so, please raise your hand. All right, let the record reflect that all of our jurors have answered no to that question, that they have no knowledge about the case or this incident. Earlier, the attorney trying this case introduced himself to you. Do any of you personally know that the attorney in this case, the plaintiff's attorney, Mr. Kajurgis? If so, I need all of you to unmute your microphones, give me a verbal response.
No.
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 All right, did anyone have an answer differently in majority? If so, please raise your hand. All right, let the record reflect that none of our jurors know the plaintiff's attorney, Mr. Kajurgis. You were also introduced to the court personnel a few minutes ago. Do any of you know any of the court personnel in this case that I introduced to you?
No.
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 All right, did anyone have an answer different than the majority? If so, please raise your hand. All right, let the record reflect that all of our jurors have answered no to their knowledge of the court personnel. Also, there will be two principal witnesses who may testify in this case. They are the plaintiff, Cayla Griffin, and a witness, Charlie Griffin. Do any of you all know the plaintiff, Cayla Griffin, or the witness, Charlie Griffin?
No.
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 Did any of you answer differently than the majority? If so, please raise your hand. All right, let the record reflect that all of our jurors have answered no to that question about any knowledge of the plaintiff, Cayla Griffin, or the witness, Charlie Griffin. The next phase of the remote jury selection provides the attorney, Mr. Kaczurgas, an opportunity to ask you more specific questions about the issues that may be relevant to this case in order to help him come to his own conclusions about your ability to be fair and impartial. After he has asked all of his questions of this jury panel and all the other jury panels today and tomorrow, I will meet with Mr. Kaczurgas and Ms. Griffin, the plaintiff, remotely outside of your presence, and we'll discuss who will be the final jury in this case. Mr. Kaczurgas will be allowed to exclude persons from serving on this jury if they can give a reason to believe that a potential juror might be unable to be fair and impartial. That is what is called a challenge for cause. Mr. Kaczurgas could also exercise a number of what are called peremptory challenges, by which they may exclude a person from the jury without giving a reason at all. By this process of elimination, the remaining persons are selected as a final trial jury to serve in this case. The questions that you'll be asked during this phase of jury selection are not intended to embarrass you or unnecessarily pry into your personal affairs, but it is important that the plaintiff and her attorney, the plaintiff's counsel, and the plaintiff know enough about you to make an important decision. If the question is asked that you would prefer not to answer in front of the whole courtroom, just let me know, and you'll be permitted to give your answer outside the presence of the other jurors in front of just me and the attorneys and the court reporter. I'll then ask you to use your discretion when taking advantage of this remote option, as it will take a very long time to finish jury selection if each one of you only wants to answer questions in private. There are no right or wrong answers to the questions that will be asked of you. The only thing I ask is that you answer the questions as frankly and honestly as you possibly can. You have taken an oath to answer all questions truthfully and completely, and you must do so. Remaining silent when you have information you should disclose is a violation of that oath as well. If a juror violates that oath, it not only may result in having to try the case all over again, but can also result in civil and criminal penalties against the juror personally. So again, it's very important that you answer these questions as honestly and completely as you possibly can. If you don't understand a question that's being asked of you, please raise your hand and ask for an explanation or clarification. In summary, this is a process to assist the plaintiff and her attorney in selecting jurors that can be fair and impartial to both sides. In order to have a fair and impartial jury, the law does not require that each juror have no opinions or biases before they can be selected to serve. Instead, the law simply requires that a juror be able to set aside any opinions or biases that he or she may have and decide this case based solely on the laws I instruct you in it and the evidence and testimony presented during this remote trial. All the questions the attorney asks you are for this purpose and this alone. If you, for any reason, do not think that you can be fair and impartial as a juror, you must tell us. Remember, all the rules that I give you apply even when you're outside the remote courtroom, such as at recess. The attorney for the plaintiff will now ask you some questions remotely. What they say now or any other time during the trial is not to be accepted by you as either evidence or law. In fact, Mr. Kaczurgas is not allowed to tell you what the law is. That is the job of the court. He will simply be asking you questions looking for answers from you. Please do not infer anything or read anything into the questions he asks you. At this time, I'll ask Mr. Kaczurgas, as the plaintiff's attorney, to inquire of the jury panel remotely. Mr. Kaczurgas?
Thank you, Your Honor. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for appearing via Zoom this morning for this historic event. It's the first remote trial in our circuit. And I have to confess, with COVID and what's going on, this is a brave new world for all of us. None of us have been in this situation before, none of the court, myself, anyone involved. And so thank you for agreeing to participate in this. That being said, it's very unusual for me. These proceedings generally take place in courtrooms where we're all in the same room together and we can see each other live, make eye contact, and this is strange. I'm a hugger, I'm a handshaker, and COVID has blown all of that up. So it's very unusual, and we're going to do the best we can with this. But as I said, we're in a brave new world. So that being said, what we're doing here this morning is what they call voir dire. And that's a French term that means to speak the truth. And I have to say, I find this odd just doing it right here. Usually I'm up walking around a courtroom and here I'm doing it seated, and this is unusual. But in voir dire, we speak the truth. And what it's designed is to find out whether people are appropriate to serve as jurors on certain cases. We all have biases in our life, and that's okay. I'm not using that in a pejorative sense. We all have experiences in our life that affect the way we perceive things. And we may view some things negative, we may view some things positive. And those are life experiences that affect the way we view the world. And it's okay to have those biases. We all have them. It's okay. But what we're here doing this morning is to try to find out if any biases exist that would affect your ability to serve as a fair and impartial juror in this case. There's certain cases I would not be fit to serve due to certain biases I have, and that's okay. The good news is there's no wrong answers here. It's just trying to get to the bottom of whether you can serve as a fair and impartial juror. Now, as the court has alluded to, you've all filled out juror questionnaires, and thank you very much for doing so. And what I'm going to do here this morning is with some of you folks, I'm going to start with some information on the questionnaire and follow up that it may lead to some other questions. Some of you, there may not be that follow up based upon the questionnaire. And then we'll get into more of a general discussion about certain aspects of this case and whether anyone has any feelings or opinions about it or anything in your background that would affect your ability to serve. Now, we may be touching on things that are very sensitive and private, and if we do that and you're uncomfortable answering it in this forum in front of others, please feel free to say so. And we can go to what they'll call a remote sidebar and address it with just myself and the court reporter out of the view of the other jurors and court personnel if we touch upon one of those subjects that you're not comfortable discussing in this open forum. That's quite all right. But if that does come up, if you please let me know, I'm uncomfortable talking about that. Could we go to a sidebar? More than happy to accommodate. So I don't want anyone to feel put off by this. And if we do touch a nerve, please let us know and we'll deal with that at a sidebar. So I'm going to go through these questionnaires and some information thereon and some of the observations that we've made thus far this morning and have some follow-up. And juror number one, is it Miss Bean or is it Miss Ben?
Miss Bean.
Miss Bean. I can't help but notice here this morning that you're wearing a mask, and I'm not making any judgments about that. That is completely fine and your choice, and please don't take this question as any way implicating any political beliefs or being in any way derogatory. I am not. But okay. I must ask, does wearing the mask, and let's assume for the sake of argument or conversation, that you get selected as a juror and you're going to have to return Monday and serve as a juror and perhaps into Tuesday. Would wearing that mask affect your ability to serve? Is that something that would interfere with your jury service?
No, sir.
You would be comfortable doing that for the remainder of today's events that call for your time as well as a full day Monday?
Yes, sir.
Okay. While I'm on the topic, are you in a situation where there may be others near you that you feel it prudent to wear the mask for your protection and the protection of others?
Yes, sir. I'm currently at my place of employment in a conference room, and it's a requirement in our building currently.
Very good. Would participating in the trial at that conference room at your place of employment, would that have any ability to would that interfere in any way with your ability to focus as a juror and do what's required of you in these proceedings?
No, sir.
Okay. And I see from the questionnaire, you work at University of Florida, Jacksonville Physicians, Inc.
Correct.
And you've relocated here to Jacksonville from Oklahoma City approximately 7 years ago?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that location what was formerly referred to as Shands Hospital?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what do you do there for University of Florida Physicians Inc?
I'm a lab manager in cardiovascular research.
And I've been provided with a note that says I need to turn my volume down a little bit, so I'm going to do that here real quick. Okay. And then Ms. Griffin, if you could hear me, the IT folks are telling me that if you can turn your volume down, that would be that would help the process. And so if someone could let me know whether I'm too loud or too soft, I'll continue. As I said, we're in a brave new world. Back to you, Ms. Bean. You would have no problem carrying out your functions at your place of employment?
Correct.
Thank you. I see you have a number of children, Ms. Bean. What do they do for a living?
One of my sons is a stalker at Walmart, and my daughter is a housekeeper. 2 are currently unemployed, and I have 4-year-old twins.
God bless you. COVID's tough on everyone these days.
Yes, sir.
Would having 2 4-year-old twins, would that in any way pose a hardship for you in serving on a jury? I know that's a handful in and of itself, not to mention what we've got going on here.
No, sir. That's why I chose to be at my place of employment, so I could reduce interference.
Very good. Very good. Okay, thank you. If I could, for a moment, juror number 2, Ms. Burns.
Yes,
Good morning.
sir. Good morning.
And I know it was discussed earlier that your husband has some obligations involving court proceedings as well, and understand that doesn't affect your ability to serve in any way.
No, sir.
Okay. And it would appear that you're working or appearing from I'm guessing your household from the
Yes,
background.
sir.
But, okay. And is there anything about that? I understand you have 2 daughters. Is there anything about your service from the home that would interfere with your ability to serve?
No, sir.
Okay. And I see you're an employee of Pfizer as a vaccines account manager.
Yes, sir.
I imagine that may bring you may be particularly busy here the last several months, or has COVID not really impacted your sphere of influence?
No, it's busy. Everybody needs good preventative health care. So yes, it's been busy.
Okay. Would the nature of your job and what's going on currently affect your ability in any way to serve?
No, sir.
What do your children do, or your children are too young to do anything other than go to school, I guess?
Yes,
so
sir.
They're probably getting ready to return?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I see that your husband is an IT delivery manager.
Yes, sir. Please don't ask me what that means.
I was saying I might have been able to use his services earlier. I don't know if the rest of you noticed that I dropped off for a minute. We were experiencing some IT issues on our end, and hopefully those have been resolved. At least they appear to have from where I'm sitting. So
right.
Very good. If I could next, thank you, Ms. Burns.
Yes, sir.
Next, if I could address juror number 4, Ms. Roberts.
Yes, sir.
It would appear you're appearing from your home as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I understand that to be in East Arlington.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I see from your juror questionnaire, it appears that you're a nurse.
That's correct.
And how long have you been a nurse?
I was an LPN in 1973 and went on in 1977 and got my RN degree.
And currently practicing?
I own my own business which involves medical review of other hospitals and patient stays.
I was going to, that was leading up to my next question. In your questionnaire, it says the company for which you work, and I take from the CEO in your last answer, OWN, is FMRS. What does that
That's
stand for?
correct. Pardon me?
What does that stand for?
Florida Medicaid Review Services.
Okay. And so it's reviewing the submissions of medical providers for Medicare billing. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, it's more where we, the nurses, make the medical determination of medical necessity and submit that to another organization that gives us the authorization if they agree with that.
Very good. And in this time of COVID, thank you for your service as an essential employee. And I see you have one child that lives in San Diego.
That's correct.
Okay. And he's grown.
She's
grown
40
man.
years old this year.
Very good. Is there anything about owning your own company, particularly in the healthcare crisis that's currently going on, that would affect your ability to devote your time and attention as a juror in this case?
No, sir. I'm very fortunate. I have excellent employees who basically run the company for me while I'm away.
Very good. Would suggest that they had good training from their employer.
I hope so.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Roberts.
Thank you.
If I could direct my attention to juror number 5, Mr. Vega.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Morning.
I see from your juror questionnaire you live down in Bayard.
Correct.
And how long have you lived in the First Coast community?
It's going on 27 years.
Very good. And according to the questionnaire, you work for the Florida Department of Transportation?
Correct.
And what exactly do you do for FDOT?
I manage the, transportation system management and operations programs, simplify it, all the cameras, electronic message boards, traffic signals. I oversee that program.
Sounds like you may have a bit of an IT background as well.
Yes, but I hire smarter people to do the heavy
I
lifting.
do too, as you could tell from today's events. And is there anything about your job working for DOT? I know that you guys are always busy. Is there anything about your employment that would prevent you from serving as a juror in this case?
No, actually, with the current COVID situation, traffic's no problem. Nothing really pending.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If next I could speak with juror number 7, Mr. Kindler.
Yes, sir.
I see you live up in Ocean Way.
Yes, sir.
And according to your questionnaire, before that, you lived in Yulee, correct?
Correct.
Have you lived on the northern end of, let's call the First Coast? I guess Yulee's up in Nassau, but have you lived on the northern end of First Coast your entire time in the area?
Yes.
And are you a First Coast guy, born and raised?
No, I'm actually from Washington State originally.
Okay. When did you move to this area?
98.
Okay. And so you're a teacher,
Yes, sir.
getting ready to go back to school.
Go back next week.
It's crunch time.
It is.
Okay. Are
sure
you
what's happening.
slated? Are you slated? When are you slated to go back into the classroom?
Well, Monday we start training for everything
Okay.
new, and then the 24th the students show up.
Okay. We're going to be obviously spilling. This trial is obviously going to be spilling into Monday of next week. Is that going to be a problem for you in your service, given where we are?
I mean, I'll just be kind of working from behind a little bit, but it's doable.
Okay. And that's what I'm getting at is I don't want to put you in a position where you have divided attention. So if there's anything
It wouldn't be
about-
divided. I would just, as soon as, it wouldn't be divided. It's as soon as the trial's over, I'd have to go and make up the training I missed, but,
And
which is
hit the
something.
ground running.
Yeah.
Okay. So you, despite the pressure of school starting, you think you could set that aside and devote your attention to this case?
Yes, I think so.
Thanks. I see your wife's a teacher as well.
Yes,
Okay. She up in, you teach up in Nassau County, correct?
correct. And
Okay.
yeah, he's at the high school right next door.
Okay. Oh, that's convenient. You guys carpool?
Yes. Yep.
Very good. Anything about her returning to work that would impact your ability to serve?
No.
Okay. And then you've got 3 kids, I see?
Yeah, stepchildren, actually.
Stepchildren. Okay. One of them, I see one of them is 19 years old. Is that child in school or are they working?
FSCJ, and it works part-time as well.
Okay. And then you've got some underage children, 16 and 12. I take it they're returning to school?
Correct.
Okay. Anything about that impending reality that would affect your service in this case?
No, not at all.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Juror number 8, Mr. Wells. Good morning.
Good morning.
We all have implicit assumptions, if you want to call them biases, that's fine. But I see from the headset, and I know this from my own children, I've got 3 boys, that you're probably a little tech savvy, as is Miss Lasher, I see with the headset on.
Well, I'm working from home, so these are company headphones. But yes, I'm somewhat tech savvy, yes. And it's my name.
This is probably somewhat more comfortable for you than it is for more of a Neanderthal like me that's used to notepads and books. So
it's not bad.
Congratulations for getting ahead of the curve on this thing. From your questionnaire, I see you're a civil engineer.
Yes, sir.
And what exactly do you do in that field?
Drainage and permitting for transportation projects, mostly with FDOT as well.
Okay. Do you work for a private company or for the government?
I do private.
Okay. And gets government jobs, bids, what have you?
Correct.
Okay. How long have you been doing that?
Graduated in 2001. So.
Okay. What's the name of the company for which you work?
Arcadis.
Arcadis?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. On your questionnaire, there was a couple of things regarding the ability to have technology in a quiet space. And one of the questions asked whether you had a room or another quiet location where you could attend court over the internet without distractions of children, pets, or other family members. And I noticed you checked no. Is that a condition that still persists, or?
It's been resolved. Yeah, it's been resolved. I'm in a quiet room, no issues with outside interference. So.
Okay. And as I, once again, presume, it appears you're working from or appearing from home as well.
I am.
Okay. And would that in any way affect your ability to serve?
Not at all.
No. Likewise, there was the question of whether you could access the internet at that quiet location. You would check the box yes, and obviously by your appearance here today, I see that that's the case.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And you live in the intercoastal area.
Yes, sir.
As a beaches guy, which side of the ditch are you living on?
The wrong side, the west side. So I'm on San
I don't
Pablo.
think there's a wrong side anywhere.
Well, I'd rather be on the other side, but it's expensive over there. So.
Well, I've got some colleagues, friends, and associates at Isle of Palms. I may disagree with you about the cost of living in the various areas. But,
yeah.
I see from your answer, there was a question about whether a member of an immediate family had been in a prior lawsuit, and I see that your mom had been a plaintiff in a prior case.
Correct.
And what was the nature of that action, if I may ask?
A fall, slip and fall,
okay,
while she was working.
Would there be anything about that? How long ago was that, if I may ask?
Oof, over 20 years. It's been a while. If I had to guess, I would say like 90 to 95, sometime around there.
Okay. And I see you were, prior to living here in Jacksonville, you were from the Tallahassee area?
Well, that's where I went to school. So I'm actually from Georgia. I moved to Florida, went to Florida State, and then got a job in Jacksonville. So
Gotcha. If I may ask, where in Georgia were you from?
Jackson, it's just south of Atlanta, about 30 minutes south of Atlanta.
I'm familiar, actually.
Oh, okay.
Spent
It's a
some
small
time in
town.
college up in Atlanta.
What's that?
Spent some time in college up in Atlanta.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wells.
Absolutely.
And next is juror number 11, Miss Lasher.
Hello.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
I once again presume from the headset and microphone, you've got a little bit of IT familiarity and experience.
Absolutely.
And from the questionnaire, it appears that I'm going to read it, and I have no idea what this means, and I'm going to ask you to explain it if you could for me. You're an implementation specialist for Green Shades software. So one, that would certainly imply that you've got some IT experience, but what is that?
All right. So implementation specialists, at least in my company, what we do is we get assigned clients who we teach them how to use our software or our website. We're a payroll focused company. So I basically show them the ropes, show them my tips and tricks. And then when everything's set up and they're trained, they graduate and I get another client.
Got it. Do you have to go back for troubleshooting, or is other people handle that?
I handle most of the troubleshooting, but if it's very timely, I'll usually just send it up to a QA or a dev.
Okay. How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing it for 2 years now.
Very good. And I see you live in the Bay Meadows area.
That's correct.
Near and dear to my heart. That's where I grew up. And anything about, and it would appear, once again, you can't always see things. This is one of the limitations of these proceedings is we're not all up close and personal, but it would appear that you may be working from home. Is that accurate or not?
Oh yes, that's correct. I work a remote.
Anything about your appearance from home that would interfere with your ability to serve in these proceedings?
No interferences.
Okay. And anything about the job that would interfere?
Nope.
Thank you. Next, if we could talk with juror number 12, Ms. Smith. Good morning.
Good morning.
I see that you're in a location and it appears you're covering up a window to keep from blinding the rest of us viewing your image here on Zoom this morning. Is that safe?
Well, it's not a window, but it's something else that I just take out of view.
Okay. As I said, one of the limitations of these things, you can't exactly tell what's going on, but thank you. And I noted on your questionnaire some similar responses to that of Mr. Wells about having a quiet room where you could access the internet free of family, pets, and other distractions. You answered the questionnaire no, but you seem to be doing fine with us this morning. Has that condition been resolved?
It has.
Okay. So there's nothing about the environment. Are you at home, may I ask?
I am.
Okay. Is there anything about appearing from home that would pose a hardship or in any way make your service difficult?
Not at all.
Okay. It also similarly had the question, can you access the internet at that quiet location? You had answered no on the questionnaire, but obviously by your appearance with us this morning, you've apparently overcome that challenge.
I did.
Okay. And so there's no IT issues or anything that would interfere with your ability to serve?
No, sir.
And I see you live up in Ocean Way?
I do.
And a recent resident of that area, correct?
Correct. I moved from Bay Meadows.
As I said, a place fond and near and dear to me. And I see you're also a nurse.
I am.
Are you actively practicing?
I am.
Thank you for your service in this time of need as an essential employee.
Thank you.
And your job title, CMI, is that 2?
Yes, case manager, level 2.
And as a case manager, what do you do?
I actually work with the Medicare population.
Okay. Treating patients?
I'm telephonic, so what I do is by phone. It's helping them navigate the company I work for benefits and making sure their needs are met, preventive screenings, connecting them to resources that they are in need of.
Okay. Not exactly telemedicine, but getting patients plugged into what they need to access.
Correct.
Very good. And the company for which you work is called Centene?
Correct.
Is that a local company or are you working remotely?
Centene is the main company. I actually work under Sunshine Health All Well umbrella.
Okay. In the times we're living in and people's need for medical care on any, at the drop of a dime, if you get the onset of symptoms, is there anything about your profession that would pose a hardship or distract you from these proceedings today and Monday, possibly Tuesday?
Not at all.
Okay. No problem serving and you've got the time to dedicate.
I do.
Very good. And I may be touching on one of these personal questions, and if you're uncomfortable answering it in this forum, by all means, tell me, and we can handle this another way. I see that you're a widow.
I am.
If I may ask, when did your husband pass?
This year will be 6 years.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
If I may ask, what did he pass away from?
Gastric stomach cancer.
I can relate. I lost my father to colon cancer at a very young age. As I said, sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
And I see you've got 2 grown children as well.
I do.
They live in the First Coast community?
They do.
And got a lot of IT here today. I see, is it your son is an IT professional?
He is.
Very good. And what does your daughter do?
She actually works with the state, with the food assistance program, the SNAP.
Very good. I bet her life's gotten extremely busy since March as well, I predict.
Very busy.
Yes. Brave new world we're all living in. Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Thank you.
If next we could speak with juror number 13, Miss Khan, as I recall. I was about to make the same error as this morning. I'm glad I caught myself. I can see you. It's a little dark in your area, but it would appear that you're appearing from home as well. Is that?
I am, yeah. Sorry, I couldn't adjust the lighting. I tried.
Hey, we're all doing the best we can. I had to drop out of this for a couple of minutes and get back. So as I said, there is no incorrect answer here, and there's absolutely no need to apologize for any of this. Is there anything about appearing from home that would affect your ability to serve in this case?
No, there is not.
And I see from your questionnaire that you're a manager and clinical quality consultants for a company called Optum. Could you, in layman's terms, tell me what you do?
Yes, so Optum's actually owned by United Healthcare, and like Ms. Smith, I actually manage a team that educates doctors that works with the Medicare population on preventative screenings.
And so you're actually educating the physicians?
Correct.
Okay. And what kind of screenings was that? I couldn't hear that.
They're mostly preventative screenings for the Medicare population.
Okay.
Colonoscopy.
Wide variety of preventative stuff?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Anything about that job and the the medical environment we're now living in that would pose a hardship for you or provide any difficulty for your service?
No, there is not.
Okay. And you've got a husband that's a teacher, I see?
Yes.
Okay. And you've got 2 school-age children, I see.
Yes.
Anything about the 3 of them about to return to the education environment that would pose a difficulty or a hardship in any way upon you?
No.
Or is it a relief?
It's probably a relief.
Okay. As I said, I got 3 boys of my own, and I can sympathize with that sentiment. Thank you, Ms. Kahn.
You're welcome.
And last but not least this morning, Mr. James, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing all right.
And it would appear you're appearing from home as well?
Yes, sir.
Anything about that location or your appearance there that would pose a difficulty for you or any kind of hardship?
No, sir.
Okay. I see you live out in the Chaffee area.
Yes, sir. I live just off of Crystal Springs.
Very good. And you've been out there for quite some while?
Yeah, ever since I was 2 or 3.
Okay, basically your whole life.
Yeah.
Okay. Probably don't even remember anywhere prior to that, I would assume.
No, sir.
All right. And I see from your questionnaire, you're in the customer service field?
Yes, sir. I work service desk, and I'm moving up to the cash office out of Winn-Dixie.
Okay. Is customer service, is that like the office area as opposed to one of the cashier stations?
Yeah, so let's say like you buy something and it didn't ring up right, you'd take it up to the service desk and I'd help you out.
Okay. Once again, thank you for your service as an essential employee. How long you worked for Winn-Dixie?
I want to say coming up on 2 years now in November.
Okay. What's the high school out there at Chaffee from which you graduated?
I actually went to Frank H. Peterson. It's off of Wilson. It's not really close to Chaffee.
Okay. Thanks. I can't help but notice you in, everybody's got their own predilections, and you may not be a morning guy, but I couldn't help but notice you were yawning a fair amount through this morning.
Yeah,
This isn't the most exciting proceedings in the world as of yet, but you've been working late or not a morning guy?
Yeah, the other day, actually, they had me pull an all-nighter for pricing. So that kind of messed up my sleep schedule, and I wasn't really able to sleep well last night.
Once upon a time, I worked for your rival grocery chain Publix, and I remember the all-nighters stocking shelves and the like, so I can relate.
Mm-hmm.
Anything about your job in this environment that would pose a hardship for you or make it difficult to serve, distract your attention, anything like that?
I mean, other than the slight chance of catching COVID-19 from being surrounded by a lot of people, no, sir.
Okay. More specifically about when I hear that answer, I took that to mean that the environment in which you work may give you some concern because of your exposure to people, as opposed to what we're doing here today.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's more or less
Anything
the
about-
exposure. It's
Okay.
more or less like how many people come in and shop, because like there'll be hundreds of people during one shift, and it just takes one bad egg.
No, understood. As I said, strange times we're living in. But nothing about your service via Zoom that would in any way pose a hardship, would it?
No, sir.
Okay. And you're able to dedicate your time to this over the next couple of days if you're selected?
Yes, sir.
I note from your questionnaire that you've had a family member that was involved in the legal system once upon a time. Apparently your father was a plaintiff in a case?
Yes, sir. That was before I was born, so I don't fully know the details of the case.
is it safe to assume then that his experience with the legal system would not affect your ability to serve as a fair and impartial juror in this case?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it would not affect, or yes, it
Yeah.
would affect?
It would not affect.
Okay. Mr. James, it's, as I said, this is difficult for the participants because you're not in the same room, but it seems that you keep looking down at something. Is there some device apart from the I think you're on a, is it a phone? Is there a device apart from the phone?
A pen.
Oh,
pen.
okay. Thanks. You know, it appeared you were looking down and I didn't know what it was. So I wanted to make sure that there was nothing that was going to interfere with your ability. That was just clicking a pen basically.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. All right. Now, I'm going to talk generally about some issues that may get encountered in the case to see if anyone has any feelings or issues with some of these things. Because as I said, we all have biases. There is no wrong answers to any of this. What I'm trying to do is find out is if there's certain biases that may make you unsuitable to serve as a juror in this case. Maybe fine for a myriad of other cases, but maybe just not suitable for this case. And I'm going to use a very simplistic analogy to try to get the point or drive home the point about which I speak. I hate Brussels sprouts. So if I was selected to be a food critic, say on a show like Top Chef, and somebody was to prepare a meal that contained Brussels sprouts, I probably wouldn't be a fair and impartial judge for that particular contest because of my inherent bias against that topic. Likewise, we're in a case here and what's called a damages trial, what we refer to in the industry as a damages trial. As the court has alluded to previously, the court has already determined that the defendant in this case, Albanese Enterprise Inc., has been found liable for the claim that Ms. Griffin has brought, battery. So the task of the jury in this case is to determine the amount of damages to which plaintiff is entitled. And I need to find out if there's any inherent biases or predilections against these types of issues. And we're inundated in this day and age with commercials and billboards of attorneys for personal injury cases, and they're all over the place. Does anyone, and then if we'll start perhaps with a show of hands and then we can explore further if necessary, does anyone have issues or a bias against the civil justice system and people filing lawsuits for money? Does anyone have any issues or bias in that area? And I don't see a show of hands. So very good. In these types of cases, there's different elements of damages. Oftentimes a plaintiff will be seeking what's called economic damages. Sometimes that'll take the form of lost wages or medical expenses, those sorts of things. And then there's other types of damages that will be sought, and I'll try to break these down into separate categories. Where there's been an injury, a physical injury, such as that being sought by Ms. Griffin, or compensation for that injury sought by Ms. Griffin, a plaintiff will seek what's called pain and suffering damages. Damages for the pain and suffering of the event, independent of the medical bills or the things that typically produce receipts. Is there anyone that has a problem awarding pain and suffering damages as opposed to hard economic damages? And if we could do that by a show of hands. Anyone have a problem with a claimant seeking pain and suffering damages? And I see no show of hands. Likewise, another element of damages in a case such as this is what we call emotional distress and mental anguish damages. Damages to the psychic health of a person. Does anybody have an issue or any bias as it pertains to emotional distress, mental anguish type damages? And if we could do that with a show of hands. I see none. All right, thank you. Does anyone have any feelings or opinions about personal injury lawsuits generally? Anyone? Okay, I see no show of hands there either. Very good. On that topic, well, let's talk about some of the things that may occur in this lawsuit, or that may come up in the course of this lawsuit. As you may have gleaned from the court's introduction of the case, and even maybe the names of the parties, this case involves an incident that occurred at a gentleman's club. And so, given that aspect of the case, does anyone have any feelings or opinions about gentlemen's clubs in general? That would be a problem for them serving in this case, that is an aspect of it. And as I said, there is no wrong answers here. So what we're trying to do is find out if anyone has certain personal issues or biases that may not make you well suited to serve on this case. And given that an element of this is it occurred at a gentleman's club, I have to inquire. Is that an issue for anybody on this panel? And if you could express so by raising your hand if it is an issue. I see no show of hands. Has anyone on our panel, either personally or a family member or a close friend, not an acquaintance, but someone, a friend so close that they would be considered family, does anyone have a loved one or perhaps themselves ever worked at a gentleman's club? If you've had that connection, if you could please show your hand. Okay, I see none of that. Nobody's raised their hand on that as well. An aspect of this case, it was a battery case, an intentional and unlawful touching, a striking of a person. Has anyone on the panel personally been the victim of a battery, which is a legal term for being struck? Has anyone ever been the victim of a battery? I don't believe, is that Miss Khan?
Yeah, so I'm raising my hand because it's not a physical battery, but I just was involved with the DUI. So I got hit by a drunk driver last month.
Okay.
So I'm currently seeking treatment. So I don't know if that impacts the case in any way with my bias. Okay.
That's what we're trying to determine, is whether that experience would cause you any bias. Is the fact that you were struck by a drunk driver, would that in any way affect your ability to sit as a juror in this case and evaluate the amount of damages that Ms. Griffin would be entitled to?
No, because I look at each case separately. They're two different cases.
You could take your own personal experience that happened very recently and set that aside in evaluating this case on its own merits?
I can, but I do have to say that with the personal injury question, since I'm kind of going through something similar as Ms. Griffin, we have not gone to case or anything like that. I'm still getting treatment for it. It may or may not. I really don't know, to be honest with you.
Okay. Let me just ask you this, blunt and direct. As we sit here right now, do you think you could be a fair and impartial juror in this case?
Yes, I can be fair. I know how to separate things.
Okay. And you'd be able to follow the court's instructions on the law, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyone else have a similar experience to that of Ms. Khan that would affect their ability to serve, or that they feel that they should put on the table for further examination? Anyone? Okay. Well, I kind of entered that topical area by asking whether anybody themselves had been personally affected by being the victim of a battery. Let me expand that out a little bit. Does anyone in your family, or as I said, a close friend, someone that would be considered like family, Has anyone on the panel, or a family or a close friend, ever been the victim of domestic violence? Anyone? See Ms. Smith raising your hand? Could you, once again, if we're touching on something too personal, let us know and we can go to sidebar. But if you could, I'm going to ask you to share with us what your experience has been.
As a result of domestic violence, that's what my mother passed away from.
Passed away from?
Yes.
Very sorry to hear that. Would that experience in any way affect your ability to serve in this case?
It would not.
Okay. How long ago was that, if I may ask?
I was young. I was probably 17.
Okay. So I'd lost my father at age when I was 15, so I can somewhat relate, and I know how difficult that is. And sorry for your loss there as well.
Thank you.
And given that experience, you don't think that would affect your ability to be fair and impartial in this case?
No, I don't. Each situation is different.
Okay. And you'd be able to follow the court's instructions on the law?
I would.
Anyone else have a situation in their family or a close friend, perhaps similar, maybe not quite as drastic as that in Ms. Smith's life, but has anyone else had similar experiences in their life? And I see no further show of hands. I know Ms. Khan has talked about a recent event, and she had noted that she has not entered the legal system yet with it. She's still being treated. Has anyone else on our panel ever filed a lawsuit before? And I see no show of hands. I'm going to return to the topic of gentlemen's clubs for a minute. And if this is touching on something that's too private and no one wishes to discuss in this forum, please advise and we can do it at a sidebar. If I could see by a show of hands, who's been to a gentleman's club? Okay, I see Mr. Wells and Mr. Vega. Let me start with you, Mr. Wells, juror number 8. Is there anything about that visit or visits that would affect your ability to serve as a juror in this case?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Anything untoward ever happened to you at a gentleman's club?
No.
Okay. Mr. Vega, if I could direct my attention to you for a moment. Anything about your experience at a gentleman's club that would affect your ability to serve as a fair and impartial juror in this case?
No.
Okay. Anything negative happened to you at a gentleman's club?
No.
Okay. On the flip side, anything positive happened to you at a gentleman's club?
Not really. I usually do it with bachelor parties, a way to entertain the groom.
Very good. Do you have any opinion about them one way or the other?
Not really. I try to keep my money in my pocket and let others spend theirs.
Very good. One of the elements of this case is that may get touched upon is alcohol, and this can be a sensitive subject for a lot of people. Perhaps we've had issues with family members in our background, but does anyone personally or a close family member, very close friend, had any experience with someone who's had issues with alcohol? And if you have, if I could maybe see a show of hands. I see Ms. Roberts, juror number 4, you're raising your hand. What experiences have you or a family or a close friend had with alcohol?
Excuse me, my stepmother was an alcoholic for many years while I was growing up, and she went into recovery probably for over 25 years. She was a recovered alcoholic, but she passed away about 2.5 years ago for an unrelated issue.
Okay, and that was your stepmother?
Yes, that's correct. Okay. Just remotely, I wasn't involved. I was young. I wouldn't have known about it, but my maternal grandparents apparently had drinking issues. And right now, my brother, I wouldn't consider him an alcoholic because he won't admit it, but he does enjoy his drinks.
Okay. What's the old saying? Reasonable people can disagree. Is that kind of the debate in the family right now?
True.
Okay. Is there anything about your past experiences with loved ones in your lives suffering from that infirmity that would affect your ability to serve as a juror in this case, given that there tangentially may be some discussion of alcohol being involved?
No, I consider the abuse of alcohol like any other substance abuse. I consider that a medical issue, and I do feel it's treatable with the person's cooperation and willingness to accept that.
Okay. Is there anything about persons that consume alcohol that would affect your opinion such that they may be starting out with a strike against them before we hear anything?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Probably because it was very inartfully worded. Let me try again. Is there anything about your past experiences with loved ones and alcohol that you would have a bias against somebody that consumed alcohol?
No, I don't believe that would be an issue for me.
Okay, very good. Ms. Roberts has been very candid with the topic. Has anyone else had issues in their family or close friends as it relates to alcohol? Ms. Burns, I see you raising your hand, and Ms. Bean, I don't know if you're raising your hand or if it's just your hand in the camera. We'll start with Ms. Burns, and I'll come back to you, Ms. Bean. Ms. Burns, what can you tell me about your past or others' past near to you as it relates to alcohol?
So I know that on my mother's side, there were alcoholism issues, folks that were alcoholics, and I have had some friends who I consider family that also have alcohol problems, abuse problems.
Got it. Anything about those family and friends that struggle with alcohol that would affect your ability to sit in this case where
No.
tangentially that may come up?
No, sir.
Okay. You could set aside whatever those experiences were to evaluate this case on its own merits?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Bean, I couldn't tell if you were raising your hand or if you were just had your fingers in the camera frame there.
I apologize. I was not raising my hand.
Thank you. Those were the two that caught my eye on this, for lack of a better term, Hollywood Squares jury selection that we're doing today. Did anyone else raise their hand on that topic of personally, friends, loved ones, family experiencing issues with alcohol? Anyone? Nope. Very good. I think we're getting near wrap up here. I want to return back to some questions about any opinions that anyone may have regarding lawsuits in general, personal injury cases, tort reform, that sort of thing. Does anyone feel that when you hear stories out there that jury verdicts have become too high? Does anyone have that opinion? And if you do, if you could please see a show of hands. Okay, I see none. Does anyone have the opinion that there's just too many lawsuits in America these days? Does anyone hold that opinion? And I see no show of hands. Is anyone supportive of legislative efforts to put caps on the amount of damages in a lawsuit? Does anyone support that political effort? And I see no show of hands either. I'm gonna go through the lastly through this, and it seems like an oddball question, but humor me. If I could start, I'm gonna go through juror number 1, Ms. Bean. If I may ask, from what is the primary source by which you consume your news?
Usually local, and I just watch on my phone.
Okay. Action 12, News for Jacks.
News for
30,
Jacks. Yes,
one
sir.
of the local
Mhm.
channels?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very good. And you get that digitally over the phone, you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Take it, not much of a TV woman?
No, sir.
Okay. Likewise, juror number 2, Ms. Burns, from what source do you consume your news?
Usually on my phone, I'll read it, or also on Hulu. I will off my phone. I'll listen to the news that way.
Is there a
Or
particular
watch it.
outlet on your phone or on subscription service via Hulu by which you consume that media?
So usually News for Jacks or CNN.
Okay. As I said, I'm a little bit of a Neanderthal, so I'm still operating under cable. You'll have to humor me on that. Juror number 4, Ms. Roberts, from what source do you consume your news?
I usually watch the local news, which would be Channel Fox 30 or 47, basically the same difference local. On the national scene, I try not to listen to them because they aggravate me so much. But if I am listening when I have the opportunity, I pretty much listen to the Fox News on Hulu or, yeah, pretty much Hulu. That's all I have. I don't do cable.
Got it. Another streaming service, huh?
Correct.
Very good. And Mr. Vega, juror number 5, same question to you. From what source do you consume your news?
Multiple. I'm a news junkie, so NPR in the morning and evenings, CNN, Fox, headline news, the local news through the internet and on television.
Pretty wide swath of outlets that you take in.
Yeah, because each one in some perception has biasness. To get a clear picture, I listen to all.
Yeah. Take it in and then you sort it out yourself.
Correct.
Very good. Mr. Kindler, juror number 7, how about you?
For me, it's probably more word of mouth. I really don't watch anything.
Okay. As a teacher, do you touch on current affairs with the kids at all?
I teach algebra, so no.
Pretty much no. That's been around for quite a while. Nothing real current about it, huh?
All right, unless the kids bring it up and we might have a little discussion, but not usually, no.
Okay. What subject matters your wife teach?
She teaches science, AP classes.
Okay. Biology, chemistry, physics?
Anatomy, physiology, physics, and environmental science.
Okay. Kind of a little bit across the board, huh?
Yes.
Slightly curious. My wife is a research scientist. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, he loves all that. So.
Okay. Juror number 8, Mr. Wells, question to you. From what source do you consume your news?
Yeah, so in the car, probably NPR, and then at home, CNN.
Okay. You a cable guy or subscription service?
I haven't cut the cord yet, but wish I could. Still
I'm
with
getting
cable.
there too. Every time that
Yeah.
bill shows up, I think about it. You know.
Right, right.
Likewise, juror number 11, Miss Lasher. From what source do you consume your news?
I haven't been looking at the news much of late just because of everything going
blame
on.
you.
Yeah. But before the pandemic, I would occasionally go onto Jax4 News, read little news articles from Reddit, but not too much.
Okay. In the event you delve into the national media, do you have a particular outlet there that you utilize?
Mostly Jax4 News.
Okay. Hopefully they sweep it in and you're covered, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Juror number 12, Ms. Smith, question to you.
The little bit of news that I do watch is local news for Jacks.
Okay. Any national outlets?
Not really.
Okay. You a subscription service or a cable woman or none of the above?
None of the above.
All digital these days, huh?
Yes.
Okay. That reduces those ugly little bills showing up at the first of the month.
It
God
sure
bless
does.
you. Juror number 13, Ms. Khan. Same question for you. From what source do you consume your news?
So in the car, it's 104.5, and then on the national, it's Fox News. I don't watch a lot of local. I don't
Very
pay
good. Yeah. Subscription service or cable or none of the above?
It's a cable service.
Okay.
Haven't cut the cord yet either.
Yeah. We'll see how long that those companies persist. Juror number 15, Mr. James, when you're not at work at Winn-Dixie, do you consume news?
Not much. Like I'll read the breaking stuff, like if something tragic happens or like things that you kind of can't avoid knowing about, but I don't really go into the news that much.
Okay. You how do you consume it? Digitally, subscription service, cable? What do you got?
Normally I just happen upon it on like Action Jacks or whatever. I'll sometimes go on Reddit and see articles for like international stuff.
Okay. Thank you. Bear with me 1 second, folks. Your Honor, I don't believe I have anything further. And lastly, let me ask this, which I neglected to ask. Apologize, Your Honor.
That's okay.
I've been talking here, asking questions of you folks, and I really appreciate your candid responses to that. And I've been somewhat directed on certain topical areas. And before I conclude my examination, if you will, of you, is there anything I haven't asked or that hasn't come up, but you feel that you need to put it on the table with me? Now would be the time to do it. If there's some aspect of what we've been discussing or the aspects of the case that I haven't addressed, but you think I may need to know that in terms of trying to select what I believe to be the best jurors for this case, that you have something in the back of your head that maybe I should tell him about this, whatever that may be. Is there anything that I haven't touched upon or we haven't discussed that you think you need to put on the table for me before we conclude here this morning? Anyone? Okay, I see no show of hands.
There was one show of hands, I believe, juror number 2, Ms. Burns.
Ms. Burns?
Yeah, I don't know if this is necessary, but I noticed you noted it for a couple of the jurors. I'm also a nurse. I don't practice anymore, but I was a nurse. Feels like a million years ago. So I keep my license, but I don't practice. So I just want to throw that out there.
Well, thank you for your former service. Is there anything about that background you think that would affect your ability to serve as a juror in this case?
No, I just wanted to make sure you're aware.
Okay, no, thank you. I appreciate that. How long ago did you leave the practice?
Like 20 years ago.
Been a while.
Although I keep the license, but 20 years since I practiced. Yes, sir.
And you got to do the continuing education and whatnot to maintain the license?
Yes, sir.
Still do that, I take it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have anything else out there that they feel that may not have been touched upon that I may want to know about? Anyone? I see no show of hands. And all right, Your Honor, I have nothing further.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kaczurgas. Ladies and gentlemen, the very first jury panel, the very first totally remote jury selection for the very first totally remote jury trial in this county and in the state of Florida, and likely in the entire United States of America. I could not have asked for a better jury panel to be the first one up this morning. You've had to endure a couple of technology issues. You've had to go through this as the very first ones, and I couldn't have asked for a better, more attentive group of prospective jurors in the first jury panel. So on behalf of everyone, I thank you for your service here this morning. I have some important instructions to give you before you leave this the remote courtroom, so listen very closely. All the rules I gave you, all the instructions I gave you at the beginning of the day today stay in full force and effect, because we don't know right now which of you will be serving on our final jury. In this case, we have another panel today and 2 more tomorrow to go through jury selection. So we won't know the answer until after the last panel is questioned. So please abide by all those rules I gave you earlier. Each of you will receive an email from our remote bailiffs after we finish jury selection with the respective prospective jury panels tomorrow afternoon. You'll get an email telling you one of two things. The email is either going to advise you that you were selected to serve as one of our 8 trial jurors, and you'll have detailed instructions to create your Zoom login. You'll receive a virtual background for your jury service and a Zoom invitation where to join us at 9 o'clock Monday morning, August 10th in remote courtroom 601. Or you'll receive an email advising you that you were not selected, thanking you for your service, with detailed instructions to obtain a return to work letter or written excuse for your employer or school or significant other as to where you've been this entire morning during the time you were on this jury panel. And also, as important or even more important, you'll also receive if you're not selected to serve on this jury, you'll receive some very detailed instructions on how to complete a very, very important survey that you must complete in order to help us in the Florida Supreme Court study this project and make future decisions about the use of it going forward. We need your information, your input, so it's very, very valuable. So I'm begging you, pleading with you to please fill out that survey if you were not selected to serve on the final jury in this case. So for that reason, for the reason that we don't know yet which of you are going to serve on the final jury in this case, I'm going to give you some very basic recess instructions that are going to remain in place for all of you until this trial is over, either on Monday or at the latest on Tuesday next week. And those instructions are as follows. Do not go to any scene or location described during the jury selection or trial. Do not discuss this case with anyone in person or through electronic devices. The lawyers in the court will ignore you between now and the trial. So if for some reason you're on social media over the weekend and you come across something for one of the participants in the trial or for the court or for anyone else that's involved in this case, they cannot contact you. They cannot communicate with you. They can't talk to you in any way, shape, or form until after this entire trial is over. Also, you may be at a grocery store, supermarket, Target, Walmart, some location. You might be out at the beach or doing something for recreation. You may see someone that's participating in this trial. The lawyer, Mr. Kaczurgis knows and the court knows we can't communicate with you. We can't talk to you. So if we walk past each other and you try to get our attention, we're going to look the other way, not because we're rude, not because we're trying to ignore you or we don't think highly of you. It's because we can't have any communication with you unless it's here in the courtroom on the record. So I just want to make sure you're aware of all of that. Also, do not discuss this case with anyone. When you walk out of whatever room you're in, or when you go back to work or do whatever you're going to do today or over the weekend, others may be asking, what was going on? What was that like? What was it about? What's the case about? What's going on? You can tell them that the judge, and you can blame it all on me and say whatever negative things you want to say about the court. You can tell them the judge ordered you not to talk about what you did today or about your jury service. And you cannot talk about it until after the case is resolved on either Monday with a verdict or Tuesday on a verdict. So don't let anyone talk to you about this, what's gone on here today or what may go on next week. If you get questions before you receive the email advising you whether you're serving on the jury or not, you may tell anyone who asks, including your employer, about the schedule. You can't talk about the case or about your experience, but you can talk about the schedule. You can tell them, well, I may get selected on a jury. If I get selected, my schedule will have to be in the remote trial on Monday at 9 a.m. and we'll go through the entire business day till 5 or 6 p.m. And if we get the case, it may take a little longer, so I'll be out of commission on Monday, more likely not the entire day. There's a very slight possibility we go into Tuesday. If so, we'll definitely be done on Tuesday. So you can tell them about the schedule, but don't talk about the case itself or about your experience. Don't even tell them about what kind of case it is. All right, then finally, you shouldn't do anything on social media. No emailing, texting, tweeting, blogging, or anything else about your experience here today. If you receive communications from the media or anyone else about this case, please do not respond. Please do not provide any information until after the case is completely over. Please don't conduct any investigation on your own. Don't try to do any research into this case or about the people or places involved in this case. And please do not look at any news coverage. I can tell you right now, there's going to be some news coverage of what happened this morning. Don't go online. Don't go look at newspapers, television, anywhere at all. Don't look at anything at all about what happened here this morning. I don't want you to look at any news coverage of these proceedings until this case is completely over, which will be either Monday or Tuesday. Don't look at anything after the case is over. You're welcome to go back and look at how the media covered it, but not now. With all that in place, I'm going to send you off to recess at this time with our collective thanks for your service. And you will be getting an email no later than Friday afternoon advising you of whether you're going to be with us on Monday as one of our 8 jurors or whether you're excused with our collective thanks. So with that, unless there's anything else, I'll ask our remote bailiffs, Mr. Smith, Mr. Muse, Mr. Estelila, anyone at all, anything further that we need to add for this jury panel before we send them off to recess for today.
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Hodak, is our special magistrate, anything I've left out?
No, sir.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, of our first prospective jury panel, you're now in recess until, or unless you're called back as one of our final jurors on Monday at 9 a.m. So thank you so much for your collective service. Have a good day and a good weekend ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, let's see, Ms. Smith is leaving. Ms. Smith, are you going to leave the remote?
Yes,
court?
yes.
Right, so Ms. Smith?
Yes.
With Ms. Smith, you're going to leave the remote courtroom, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, you can leave the meeting now. Thank you. So let the record reflect that all of our first prospective jury panel members have left the remote courtroom. I understand that we are going to be starting a little late with our second panel. And so I'm going to ask Mr. Muse, have all of our prospective jurors in the second panel arrived, and are they in the remote jury qualification room?
We have 5 in the remote, in the waiting room at this time, Your Honor. We can't send them to the jury assembly room until we let them into the meeting.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do then, is I'm going to go, I'm assuming that 15 minutes will be enough time to confirm their identification and go through the PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, sir, that should be.
All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead, for the purposes of everyone viewing through CVN and for the remote court personnel, we're going to go ahead and put the stopwatch slide on the screen, and we're going to put 15 minutes on that stopwatch. And hopefully when we're back from those 15 minutes, we'll be ready to start the next jury selection panel. All right, we'll start now with the 15 minutes, and then Mr. Muse, you can go ahead and admit once that stopwatch comes on the screen and we start counting down, you can go ahead and send those jurors to the remote jury qualification room.
Yes, sir.
All right, very good.